the area director. We'll wait for a little announcement on recording to get through. My name is John Morris. I'm the area director for the Keller Williams, Maryland, DC region. One of the things I didn't bring up yesterday that it's just a fun fact is I always like joke with everybody that I have the longest commute in Keller Williams because I'm area director for the Maryland, DC region, but I live in California. So I have about a 5,000 mile commute. Fortunately, I only have to make that commute once a month. So I go out to the region every month, spend about a week there, and then the rest of the time do Zoom calls, kind of like we're doing here now. In addition to my role as area director, I've been in the real estate business since 2003, which is kind of scary. Last month, I hit my 19th anniversary in real estate business. During that time, I've been in sales, been part of a team, have run a team, been productivity coach, a couple other roles as far as that goes too. So worn a lot of hats in the business. One of the things about me too that we didn't really kind of get into yesterday is that probably my most productive time as an agent when I was in production was during a shift, which is why I like teaching this class. Because a lot of us, again, we talked a little bit about mindset yesterday, and I don't want to go there too much today. But a lot of us get to, especially newer agents that haven't been in shift, think, oh my God, the world's falling apart and I don't know what to do. I'm not going to be able to get any business. And I think the big thing is, and then we'll hop into the content today, is just having the mindset of people are always going to be buying and selling real estate. They're not going to stop. It might change a little bit. And forgive me if I mentioned this yesterday. I think I might have, but Gary always talks about that quote again, that you got to skate to where the puck is, not where it's at right now. It's a hockey reference, right? And again, what that means is where the buyers and sellers are right now, if we're gearing everything towards that and trying to get and move to that 8 to 9 months to 12 months down the road, that might not be who our buyers and sellers are anymore. So as we're pouring all this energy into that, right, we're not thinking about what's next. And, you know, because a hockey puck, it doesn't stay still. It's constantly in flux. It's constantly moving. Real estate's kind of like that too. And so we need to be thinking about, and we went over this pretty extensively yesterday, who are going to be the motivated? Who's going to be not only motivated, who's going to be ready, able, and willing to buy or sell in the next 8 to 9 to 12 months? And are we aligning our marketing efforts and our lead generation efforts towards getting towards those people? Are we skating to where the puck's going to be? All right. And so we went through some exercises yesterday on trying to figure out who those people were. And today we're going to really kind of jump into or start out with the lead generation funnel. So that's where we begin the class today. So let me just share my screen and then we will hop into kind of what that looks like. So let me open up the slide deck. And again, we started with making sure we know our numbers yesterday. That's really important. Now, once we know our numbers, how are we going to get to those people? And so we're going to talk a little bit about lead generation. So how many of you guys have just a quick, a show of in the chat box, you can say yes, or you can just kind of raise your little digital thumbs up. How many of you guys have seen this graphic before? Okay. Got a few people that have seen this before. This is basically the lead capture model or the lead gen model that's in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, right? And what we look at here is we see lead capture. These are the activities that we are doing to get leads. And these can be either prospecting based or marketing based. Prospecting is a little bit more active. It's things like door knocking. It's things like, teaching webinars or teaching seminars. It's making phone calls. It's all the active stuff that we do that doesn't necessarily cost us money. Marketing, on the other hand, are kind of activities that we do that are going to be a little bit more marketing based. So I'm sending out postcards. I'm sending out flyers. I'm canvassing a neighborhood and I'm leaving door hangers, but maybe I'm not knocking on the doors. Marketing typically costs money. Prospecting typically not as much unless we're doing some sort of online lead gen, which obviously then there's some money involved with that. After lead capture, we basically have relationship management. Now we've got the names from these people and their contact information based on the prospecting and marketing that we've done. And then we have to put them into our database. Now, I'm not going to call you guys out on this, but I know some of you guys don't have a database because I talk to agents, and a lot of times, not a lot of times, but especially some newer agents, I don't really work a database, or I don't really have a database where I have a shoebox with some cards in it that have names and numbers on it, right? Old school back in my day, when I got started 19 years ago, it was whiteboards, and the whiteboards had everybody's name on it. And then it had kind of like little lines drawn in on who was kind of closer to moving through that funnel, right? Whatever you use, you have some sort of database, and we separate the database into leads and contacts. Now, let me ask you, what is the difference between a lead and a contact?
Somebody who is a contact, if you just have their information, and they're a lead if you know they're actively in the process of doing some sort of transaction.
Okay, really great answer. Just flip the other way around. And so basically what I mean by that, the lead is that somebody that I have their contact information, I have their name, I have their phone number, but I don't really know anything about them other than that. It's just a one-way communication. So like, for example, I go out, I run Facebook ads, I get a bunch of leads in. With the leads that I get, I got their name, I got their phone number, but I don't really know anything else about them because I've maybe sent them a text message. Maybe I've called them on the phone, but they haven't picked up or returned my call. They haven't returned my text. I might be sending emails out to them. They haven't returned anything. There's no relationship there with a lead. A lead's just basically, I have your name and your info, right? A contact, on the other hand, is somebody that I'm nurturing or I'm building a relationship with, right? So that's the difference between the two. Leads is a one-way conversation. Easiest way to think about it is this. A lead is a one-way conversation. A contact is a two-way conversation. With the contact, I kind of know a little bit more about what you want. I kind of know about what you're looking for. I kind of know what your real estate kind of needs are. And I'm creating a customized nurture system or plan around you based on the things that are important to you, right? So yeah, you totally had that right. Just the title on that, the leads a little bit was the name, not necessarily the contact for that. And you can see here, leads, they form relationships. Contacts, you start strengthening existing relationships. So as we go through there, you can kind of see the difference there. And then as we start to strengthen existing relationships, we need to prepare the contacts for conversion. So what does that mean, right? Okay, I'm going to pick on Janet here because I know Janet. I live actually in the same town as Janet. So I'm not going to really pick on you too much. I'm just going to use you as an example. So I'm a buyer and Janet is the Ripon Realtor. I'm looking to buy in Ripon. She runs an ad, and basically on Facebook, I leave my contact information in there. So now she has captured me through, would that be prospecting or marketing if she was running a quick quiz? Would that be prospecting or marketing if she was running a Facebook ad?
Marketing.
Okay, marketing, right? And then so she marketed it out, running this ad. I got the lead in. I came into her database, right? And now I'm a lead. She needs to form a relationship with me. So she puts me into command. She, sets me up on a smart plan to do a drip campaign. And she calls me and we talk on the phone. Now I turn into a contact. I let her know a little bit more about what I'm looking for. Hey, I am looking for about a 4-bed, 3-bath, somewhere around 2,500 square feet. Want to be in the price range somewhere around 800 grand. Or at least that's what my kind of max is, at least at this point. In terms of timeline, waiting for a settlement from another business transaction that's going to close in 2 months. And so in 3 months, I'll be ready to buy, right? So now she knows my goals, my plans, things like that. So what she's going to do is she needs to prepare me for conversion. So as that 3 months is going by, right? And we talked a little bit about this yesterday, right? As that 3 months is going by, if Janet takes the approach that I'm going to call John again in 3 months because he can't do anything for 3 months anyway, and I'll just call him back then, what's going to probably happen? What do you think?
Find another agent.
I'll probably find another agent if especially the thing is even though I say I can't buy for 3 months, during the course of that 3 months, what am I going to probably do? What do you think?
Nurture.
What am I going to do as the buyer during that
You're
3
going to be
months?
browsing.
I'm going to be browsing. I'm going to be looking at houses in the areas of Ripon that I want. I'm going to be doing that. And there's an opportunity here. Janet could either be the purveyor of that information to me, which now helps me build a more emotional proximity to her, or I could do it on my own, which then leaves no emotional proximity to Janet. And then if I see a house that I really like on Zillow, and I'm getting closer to being able to do that. If I'm a week out from this closing and Janet hasn't called me yet, and I see this house on Zillow, I'm probably still going to like call on that. And so what would be better if I contact Janet because she's been continually having conversations with me over those 3 months, or just me calling the person who's on Zillow? So what number 3 is really hitting here is, needs-based offerings. Am I giving them what they want? Am I giving them the information that they need? Am I automating some of those things so I'm consistently touching and reaching out to those people, which is really important when somebody says, I can't do something for an extended period of time, because what we typically do as real estate agents a lot is we just forget about those people until it's time for them to do something. And then at that point, a lot of times it's too late. So if we set automated systems up so that now Janet is sending me properties every single week. Janet is sending me information through drip campaigns on the school district, on the utility things. I'm learning more about the community inside of Ripon based on the things that Janet is sending to me. Now, once I'm ready to go, I'm going to actually be a new client for Janet, right? And then what happens too is, and this happens way too much, according to the NAR, they do polls every single year, and every year when they poll consumers, they ask buyers at the end of transactions, how many of you guys would use the same real estate agent you used for this transaction? And like 87% of the time, they say that they would absolutely use the agent again. But the number or the statistic is something like 12% or 11% only actually do use the same agent again. And why is the reason for that?
The agent doesn't keep in touch with them.
Yeah, the agent doesn't keep in touch with them. So once that deal is done, now we got to kind of start that process over again. They aren't going to go in leads because we already know them, but they're going to go back into contacts, and then we just need to change the needs-based offering. Do they need frequent information about houses that are available? Probably not. They're not buying it anymore. Do they need information about the neighborhood that they live in and the investment that they just made? Do they need information about schools in the area? Do they need information about utilities and events and things that are happening in the area? Yeah, those are the kinds of things they need. Do they need information about where they're, what rates? Because maybe they bought at a rate that's a little bit higher, and let's just say rates. So maybe you closed last week and you had a 6%, and now rates are down this week to 5.3. Could that potentially save the person some money? Yeah, right. So we just need to change that that needs-based offering after they close to something that's going to be more in line with what they need. And again, that's why we got to use those automated drip campaigns or smart plans, right? Any questions on this slide? Cool. All right, so let's take a look at this as well. So we kind of went over this, so I can kind of skip over that already in a little bit more depth. So what I want to get into is this one. So we got prospecting based and marketing enhanced. What do you think? What does that mean to you? I say prospecting based marketing enhanced, what do you think that means?
Means you got to do most of the work, and marketing kind of just adds on top.
Yeah, and that's what it means to me is, hey, listen, the foundation of the things that I do are going to need to be prospecting, right? Especially in a shift. However, that doesn't mean I should shut off marketing. I should enhance the things that I do prospecting by doing some marketing activities as well. Okay. And again, the difference between the two, if you look at these, prospecting is time intensive, where we could leverage marketing. Now, that's not really time intensive, but we got to spend money on this. Prospecting is proactive. I'm knocking on your door asking you know if you or anybody you know is looking to buy or sell real estate. So I'm really taking an active approach to that. If I'm sending out mailers or postcards or something like that, it's not necessary. I'm potentially sending those to people who might not want my message at all. So it's a little bit more passive versus proactive. And with prospecting, we typically get more immediate results, because if I knock on Janet's door and I ask her if she's looking to buy or sell or real estate, and then she tells me no, and if I ask her if she knows anybody that's looking to buy or sell real estate and she tells me no, now I know immediately that Janet is not in the market for any of that stuff. Where if I just send out postcards to Janet, I don't really know what she's thinking about unless I actually contact her, right? So in terms of business in a shift, we want to be more heavily here, which is why the triangle base is showing prospecting, because it's not going to cost us money. And we know right now we should be tightening our expenses, right? So it's not going to cost me any money. We're going to get more immediate results, because the thing is that we might have to wait a lot longer to get marketing results than even typical. So if I need to get business now, this is going to give me a little bit more business now. And it's allowing me to take things into my own hands rather than just kind of waiting, right? Only problem is that we need to really make sure that we're time blocking our time, because this is going to doing this is going to eat up a lot more. Okay. So if we're looking at this, we talked a little bit about what is prospecting, what is marketing. So let's go to the next page, which is going to give you some ideas on what basically prospecting is, and then what marketing is, and then what might be considered both a little bit. Okay. So here's some different lead generation techniques that you could do that would be considered prospecting. Phone or face-to-face, right? Anybody that's listings without agency, what that means is FSBOs or expireds. Circle prospecting, neighborhoods, apartment complexes, recently sold listings, recently listed properties, right? That's the thing a lot of times people think about too, especially new agents, right? Hey, I can't send a postcard out, or I can't go door knock a neighborhood on a recently listed property because it's not my listing. Well, why not? Right? Because ultimately, even if Janet listed the property in my neighborhood, doesn't mean I can't go knock on all my neighbors' doors and let them know that the property at 1253 Spyglass just went up for sale. I don't need to say that it's not mine. Hey, it just went up for sale, and we know that a lot of people like to, choose their new neighbors or whatever. So I'm just kind of going through the neighborhood, letting everybody know, a little bit about the property, what's going on with it, and would appreciate if you know anybody that's looking potentially to move in the neighborhood, whether it's friends or family. I'd love to have a conversation with them, right? So even if we don't have a listing ourselves, chances are, I'm going to give you a secret, chances are the listing agent is probably not doing their job canvassing the neighborhood anyway. So I would bet more often than not, I would probably say at least 9 times out of 10 that you would be the only person knocking on the door if a new property got listed in your neighborhood, right? Because let's just face it, I've lived in my house since 2008. And I think I might have had we've had several homes in the court go for sale. And I maybe in that 14 years have had one real estate agent knock on my door, maybe, right? So that's some ideas. Community outreach, doing charity volunteer work is a way to prospect. I know a lot of people really build some good businesses that way. A good friend of mine, Dan Hishabri in Mount Airy, Maryland, builds most of his business through the community, which is great. You know, some key relationships you might have with corporations, builders, banks, investors. Investors is a big one that I would be working on right now, because you talk about who's going to be able to buy in 12 months. Investors don't care about rates because they're cash heavy and everything is going to be on sale. So there's going to be a lot of buyer opportunity there. Teaching and speaking opportunities are really, really great. Another really great agent in my region, Ed Robinson, has built almost his entire business. All of his leads, and he closes a lot of transactions, have come from working with teachers unions and HR companies. And he basically, you look at basically the HR or the associations for teachers unions, and they always have guys come in and talk about health benefits. They always have guys come in and talk about life insurance benefits and things like that. What about you being the real estate guy for those people? I'll come in and I'll talk to your people about, you know, buying and selling properties, building wealth through selling properties, be that added benefit for an HR company or for a teachers association on being their real estate advisor. And Ed, like I said, he's in with the biggest employers in his towns doing just that and getting tremendous leads, right? Providing meals, door-to-door networking, booths, kiosk walk-ins, all that stuff. Some ideas that are kind of incorporate both is doing some farming, events, networking, and, you know, referral networks, things like that. Some ideas for marketing, offline advertising in some of the different areas. I'm not going to read through all of those. Some online advertising, broadcast things like TV or radio. Obviously, that one's a little bit more expensive. Direct mail, promotional items, swag, sponsorships on some things as well too. Okay. When I'm just looking at the chat box because I see some people going there. Okay, so okay, that's cool. No questions. Any questions on this?
No.
So looking at this, one of the questions that's on the handout in your guys' books on page 50, it says, how do you usually decide which lead sources to employ for lead generation? So what are some of the things, quick question for you guys, and you guys can either unmute yourself or respond in the chat. When you're thinking about which lead sources to use, what helps you decide on what avenues to approach or to attack? Or none of you guys doing any lead generation at all? Okay, we got some response now. Janet's a good one, cost, right? Because some of our top teams spend a lot of money on lead gen. Maybe I can't afford that, right? Emmy says time and money, right? Past clients is always a good one as well too. So yeah, there's some different, really good different ways that you can make decisions. I think that's the big thing, especially for newer agents. We lead with the revenue, you know, play red light, green light, do the things that are more prospecting based potentially at the beginning, because that doesn't really cost you money. It just costs you a little bit of time. And then as you get into more transactions closing, you can move into some of the things that are a little bit more expensive. Because for me on day one, as an agent, to go out there and say, hey, I'm going to do the things that Bob Lucedo in my region does. Bob, by the way, sells about 2,500 homes a year. That would be ridiculous, because Bob does like crazy stuff, right? That a new agent would never be able to replicate, not just from a money standpoint, but just knowledge base. So being really intentional about that, I think is important. And it's going to be needed too, because, you know, you could sit there and say, hey, John, why wouldn't I just do prospecting? Marketing doesn't seem like it's going, marketing is going to cost me money. And also marketing is not going to give me as an immediate return. So why don't I just completely focus on prospecting? Well, here's the other thing is if Janet is a door knocking machine, there's only so many doors Janet can knock on in a given day, right? And so at some point, Janet's going to need some other sort of leverage or some other sort of thing to be able to help her continue to grow her business. Because if my max, let's just say, is knocking on 50 doors a day, I physically can't do more than that. Then I'm going to cap out at some point if I don't find some other method or way to do this stuff. And I like Tana says in there, Bob door knocks every day. I can tell you one thing for sure. The guy is one of the top real estate agents in the world, and he still holds his own open houses because he just loves selling real estate and getting belly to belly with people. So he's not one of those rainmakers that sits from afar just collecting money off of all the agents that are selling for him. He gets into the trenches too, which is cool. All right. So going to the next page is identifying your lead source zone. So quick activity here. And we're not going to break out into rooms on this as far as that goes. We could just do this together right now. And this is in part A, which again, this is page 52. So I want you to think about the lead sources that you got. So let's take just a couple minutes here and we'll stay on in this room together. Is write down the top leads, and it says top 10, maybe you don't have 10. So in part A on lead sources, I just want you to write down where all your leads are coming from right now, okay, that you were using. Could be door knocking, open houses, Facebook ads, Zillow, whatever. And then what I want you to do is for number 2, it says write in the brackets beside each source the approximate number of valid leads or closings each source brought you in the last year. So I'm going to put my lead source, and then I'm going to put a little number next to it on, again, you might not have your numbers in front of you, but just think about roughly how many leads did I actually get from that particular source this last year. So if I run, say, Facebook ads is one lead source, how many leads did I get, right? Now, in the prioritize sources column, what I want you guys to then do is from the leads, the least amount of leads, or most amount of leads to the least amount of leads. I want you to take what you put in part A, and then after you look at it and say, okay, say, hey, maybe Facebook leads was number 4 on the list for me, but it actually had me the most leads. So now I'm going to put that as the top source on the prioritize sources part. So whatever got you the most leads to the least amount of leads, put those in that order there, okay? And then basically what I want you to do is, it says on here, draw a line through the 5 sources you probably maybe should drop, allowing you to focus all your resources on the top 5 that are working best for you. So maybe I list 5 out, and then the bottom 5 that I'm not getting many leads from is Zillow ads or Zillow stuff. Maybe door knocking, I'm not getting any leads from. So then I'm going to cross a line out through those. And then I'm going to say, okay, hey, here's my top 5. And then in the second part, what I want you to think about are what are some things that you can do or steps that you can take to maximize the efforts and get more out of the top 5 sources that you guys are doing. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes. You guys can turn your cameras off if you want to on this one. I'm going to start the quick timer here. I'm not at 11:29 Pacific time, so we will give you till about 11:35. Okay. In the manual, this is the activity on page 52. Hey, Janet, what's your question?
So when I go through my list of past clients and whatnot, so let's just say I get a client from an event and I do a transaction with them, and then I nurture them, still keep in touch. Then they give me a referral. and I do a transaction, where would you give that credit? Like, is it just the nurturing or does it go back to that event?
I wouldn't say the event necessarily, because really the efforts weren't from the event itself. You didn't get that lead from the event itself. You got it from the nurturing you did with your data bank.
Okay, and so that's my next question. Would you would give that credit to the database because of the touches?
Yeah, I would give that credit to the database for working my SOI.
Thank you.
Because the thing is that you might have gotten that deal from that initial person, but had you not followed up with that person at all, you probably wouldn't have got that referral. Okay, just another couple minutes here. We're on the 2-minute warning here. Okay, as you guys are wrapping stuff up, we got a little bit of, more of a minute. I have another lead source to share with you guys as well too, that maybe you don't think about, because I always like to think about outside the box ways to get clients. So one of the things that Janet just brought up was making sure that you're following up with your people. Now, one thing that we just talked about was the fact that only about 11 to 12% of the people who buy a house actually use their prior agent, right? And the reason was, again, is because they never hear from that agent again. So what I always liked to do when I was in production is, if I'm the listing agent on a house and somebody else brings a buyer to me and we close escrow, I adopt their buyer as my client after close of escrow, because I know that their agent probably is not going to follow up with them ever again. And so I just put that buyer's information into my database and I start following up with them. I do home anniversary stuff, send them on the home anniversary plan in command that you could put the smart plan to. I send the cards for the home anniversary. I send them the information at the end of the year, their first year, so they can, file taxes with the documents from closing and stuff like that. And I just take that over, because like I said, I know that 90% of the time that they're not going to ever hear from that agent again. Now I got that lead, I'm going to stay in touch with that person. And when it comes time for them to buy, sell, or refer real estate, I'm going to do it for them. Right. So there's a really great source of leads if you're a listing agent on the buyers that aren't yours. because you get their information during the course of that transaction. And if you do a really good job during the course of the transaction, a lot of them will sit there and think to themselves, hey, the listing agent's better than my agent anyway, right? So just a quick poll, because I want to keep moving on this so we make sure we get through some of the stuff because we're just a tad behind, is what were some of your guys' top lead sources? And again, you can either unmute yourself or you can put in the chat. Give me some of the things that you guys think are some of your top lead sources. So referrals, awesome. What else? Your sphere, right? So same thing basically. Open houses, that was always one of my favorite ones too when I was in production. Same thing, past clients, referrals, open houses, right? So in part B, agent to agent, good one, Mitchell. I think that's a hugely missed opportunity because we always want to sit there and say, right, is that according to the MREA, for every 12 people that are in your database, you should be able to get 2 pieces of business from. That's too much math for me anyway. So rather than 12 to 2, I break it down to 6 to 1. So every 6 people that are in your database, you should be able to get 1 piece of business, right? And that is either buy, sell, or refer. And we always say that historically, somebody in your database, even if they're not ready to buy or sell, typically will know at least 2 people during the course of the year that might think about buying or selling, which that's pretty good. What person on the planet knows more buyers and sellers than anybody in a given year, though? If the average person knows 2, what is the average real estate agent? How many do they know? And can we always help everybody that wants to buy or sell real estate? Not if they're moving to a different area, right? So in Ripon, Janet might be able to help everybody, or in the Central Valley, she might be able to help everybody. But if she's got somebody, in Maryland, she's going to probably need to refer that out. Well, why not me? Or why not, my buddy Dan or my buddy Ed or Bob Lucedo, right? And so I think that if we get a little bit more proactive, especially right now, to go out and say, hey, listen, part of my lead generation every single day is I want to add at least 2 or 3 referral agents into my referral network so that I can then now market to them. And and as far as marketing to them, just whatever newsletter that you put together or whatever local information that you do, once a month, send that out to your referral network so they know what's going on in your area and you're staying top of mind with them. And at some point when they have somebody to refer, you're going to get a chance to get that business. So Mitchell, that's a really good one. I think agent to agent is a really, really not something that typically a lot of agents will take time to go out there and actually lead generate for. And that's a huge opportunity, right? A good friend of mine, Jason Moon, out of the Walnut Creek Market Center in NorCal here, crushes it with agent to agent referrals because he's focused on it. Okay? And that kind of goes into the part B. What steps can you take to be more E to P in your lead generation efforts? So if I was to sit there and say, for example, I wanted to get more agent to agent referrals, how am I going to do that? Right? Rather than just talking to agents whenever I see them, how can I go from entrepreneurial to purposeful? What does it look like if I create a newsletter for agents every month? What does it look like if I lead generation for 15 minutes a day for agents to add to my referral network? What does it look like if I commit to going to Mega Camp and Family Reunion every year and then say, hey, I've got a goal to connect with at least 10 agents a day every day that I'm at those events that I can exchange cards with and build referral relationships with. That's moving from E to P. Janet.
I was cold called by a KW agent in Arizona a couple weeks ago, Micah. And we had a great conversation. He asked me to be his referral partner. And then he emailed me area, like informational booklet on the area that he covers for Scottsdale, Arizona, and Phoenix, Arizona. I was very impressed. Great idea.
Yeah. And if Micah stays in contact with you at least once a month, every month, for as long as he's still in the business, you're probably going to send all your referrals to him in that area. Right. like that, Mitchell. Yeah, family reunion in Orlando, met 60 agents who are not in my database, and they are now, right? And if you're marketing to those people, you're going to get business out of it. Because like I said, nobody on the planet knows more people that are looking to buy or sell real estate than a real estate agent, right? Cool. All right, so let's keep moving on. So if we look, and we're now again on page 54, we're going to talk a little bit about time blocking, right? So we look here and it says 3 hours for lead generation per day. Prepare, take action, and maintain. Okay. So let me just ask you a couple of quick questions, and you guys can put this into the chat box, right? Is how much, looking at the first question that it asks on that page, how much time are we currently spending lead generation? Be honest too. On a daily basis, how much time are you spending each day doing lead gen? 3 hours. All right. 30, that's awesome. Right. And Emmy also said that she added 30 agents to her database and emailed them as well too. So cool stuff. Arthur, cool. 30 to 60. We need to pump that up a little bit more, but thank you for being honest. I think that's great. Vanessa, 3 to 4 hours. And that's the target number. We should be spending about, and again, it really depends. And I say it depends. We always sit there and say time block 3 hours a day for lead generation and make sure you stick to it. But Janet's been in the business longer than I have, maybe, and her conversion rate's better than mine. And if Janet calls the number of people that she needs to call to convert into appointments, that she needs to convert into appointments, that will then turn into, contracts, all those things that we did yesterday that will then turn into closing. If she could do that in 2 hours a day versus 3 hours a day, and she hits the numbers that she wants to hit, does it have to be 3 hours? No. If she does 3 hours, is she going to get more leads and close more business? Yeah. But maybe what's really important to Janet right now isn't necessarily money or making more money. Maybe she's happy with what she makes. Maybe it's time. So you guys really get to decide on the actual time frame. It's just you need to make sure that your lead generation efforts match the closings that you want to get. So that if I know that in order for me to get one closing a month, I have to do at least 2 hours a call, then I'm going to spend, if I want to close one a month, I'm going to do 2 hours of calling every day. If I know that I want 2 transactions, then I'm going to probably do 4 hours of calling a day because I got goals. So whatever, that's why it's super important to know what your conversion numbers are, because then that's going to tell you the activities that you need to do, and you can engage and adjust appropriately. Okay. So second thing is, what are the typical tasks you perform in time blocking categories of prepare, take action, and maintain? So what are some things, and again, we aren't going to break up and do this as an activity right now, but if we look at these 3 things here, okay, prepare, what are some things that we do during the course of a given day where we would consider that in that category of preparation? What types of things do we prepare? If we were to break our activities up into those 3 different categories, what are the things that we would do in preparation to do our business? So Vanessa has a good one here. She says she's going to create the list on who she's going to call.
Right.
Okay. Who I'm calling, things like creating the CMAs. Obviously, part of your role is to create CMAs. David says make lots of coffee to prepare for the day, right? Okay. And what about the next one? Take action. What are some things that we would categorize as us taking action? Let's get a couple of responses there. You guys don't take action, man. The business is gonna suffer. So, okay, Don, dialing and having the conversations, hopefully, right? Calling, writing handwritten notes. Okay.
Could that be your social media post?
Could be social media posts, things like that. However, doing some of those things, and David said calling, texting, and email. That actually works in that too. You have to take action in order to text, email, and make social media posts. To an extent, do we need to let those things interfere with our lead generation time? Because I'll tell you what, if I use the post scheduling in Command, I could write an entire week's worth of posts on a Sunday morning while I'm drinking coffee, and that will automatically post those things out during the course of the week at the day and the times that I want that to go out. So now I can't use that as an excuse that, oh, I got to do my social media posting, so I can't make my lead generation calls, right? Same thing with texting. Some of the texting, not all of it, but some of the texting we can do automatically through smart plans as well as emails. So in terms of some of those things, we don't actually have to necessarily take the physical action during the course of our lead gen time. We can do that during other times. Janet.
Well, yes, I absolutely do schedule all of those out on all platforms. But what I meant by social media is where, you know, your 5 comments, your 5 likes and happy birthdays and all that.
Yep,
where you're
for
more
sure.
personable, right?
Yeah, that you can't, that you can't, but here's the other thing too. When's going to be the most traffic where people are going to respond to or see those things? Probably not during lead generation time either, right? And that's kind of what we're looking at, what the exercise is asking us to do here, is thinking about the things that we have to do during the course of the day and where can we move those things so that they don't interrupt lead gen. Because Facebook posts, I'm going to probably get more response from people posting in the evenings rather than at 9 o'clock in the morning anyway. Okay. What are some of the things that we would categorize as maintenance? What would we, if we were thinking about maintaining our business, what would be some maintenance items that we would do? And Arthur, you're correct. Lead gen really is phone and face-to-face. So if I door knock, that's lead gen. If I'm calling you on the phone, that's lead gen. Okay. Maintenance command, doing data entry, right? All the notes that I've talked to on people, which Tana then just said updating the status. Those are all things that would be maintenance. Now, if we look at those things, we have to do the preparation stuff. We have to do the maintenance stuff. But we can't let it get in the way of doing the lead generation stuff. Because at the end of the day, even if I'm using preparation to who am I going to call, can I get that list done at the end of the previous day so that in the morning when I come in, I'm ready to start calling right away? Yeah, I don't need to do that in the morning before I start making the calls. And the maintenance stuff, I can do that after the lead generation thing. So we really want to make sure that as we're categorizing the things that we do during the course of the day, the take action part should be the first thing that we do on a daily basis. The preparation and the maintenance thing should be due a little bit later. Okay. And the last question that's on 54, you're going to be the ones that are going to have to decide that. There's no clear-cut answer to that. Because like I said, if Janet's conversion rates are higher than mine, she could get away with less lead generation time, especially if she's not necessarily in growth mode. If she just wants, hey, I want to make my 500 grand a year and I don't need to make more than that. I don't want to grow a massive team. My time so I can go to rock concerts is way more important, right? Then she might not have to do 3. So you got to know your numbers. And you got to know how much time it's going to take for you to hit those lead numbers so that you can convert those into the appointments that you need. Okay. All right. So a couple things that we could look at in terms of command here, using KW technology to boost lead generation. So what are some things, and some of you guys might be using this already, and there's a little bit of a hint on the slide here. How can you use campaigns to boost your lead generation? And you can either unmute yourself or put in the chat. How many of you guys have used campaigns to boost your lead gen? I see Janet raising her hand, right? How can you use this to really amp up some of the leads, especially if we're talking about needing more leads?
The neighborhood nurture.
Okay, so you can use neighborhood nurtures as part of your smart plan campaigns, right? And in addition to that, we have paid campaigns, so you can run paid Facebook ads. And right now, nationally, we average somewhere, California is a little bit more expensive than other places, at least in my experience. But the national average is about $1.81 a lead, right? So one of the things I want to preface with that, because I don't want anybody leaving here thinking, hey, I can just get a lead for $1.81 and I can close a $10,000 transaction. That's amazing. Well, it's amazing, but not quite that amazing, right? Is I like to make sure that agents really understand the realism of doing paid campaigns. So, okay, if it costs me $2 a lead, right? Typically what you're going to need to close one transaction in terms of the amount of leads that you're going to need is you have anywhere from about a 1 to a 3% conversion rate of online leads to an actual closed transaction. Meaning that you're going to need some more, but you're going to need probably on the worst case scenario about 100 leads if we have a 1% conversion rate, right? And a lot of times what I hear when people are running ads in Command is, hey, you know what? I got a bunch of leads and, they were cheap, but none of them closed. This doesn't work, all that stuff. And then the first thing I ask them is, how many leads did you get? Oh, I only paid $50 and I got 30 leads. That's awesome. You got a lot of cheap leads. However, you need about, 70 more leads because the chance for you closing one of those is only about 1 to 3%. And so you need to at least have 100 leads if you expect to close something. So using that example, if it's costing me $2 a lead, I know that I need to budget about $200 in order to get 100 leads. Now, here's the other part of it. The incubation period for a lead typically is somewhere between 6 to 18 months. So it's a longer play. If you're looking for immediate results, probably not going to get it with online lead gens. So that's the other thing I always ask somebody when they say this doesn't work. Well, you got the leads. How long ago did you do this? Well, last month. Okay, well, great. But the typical buyer starts their search somewhere between 6 to 18 months before they actually pull the trigger. So you're going to have to nurture this person, that group of 100 leads for probably at least 6 months before it's going to actually yield any results. So if you guys are going to get into paid campaigns, you just need to understand what you're getting into. They work really, really great. And, but you need, and you can get leads for really, really cheap. However, you need to make sure that you're getting enough leads. So make sure you spend enough money to get the leads that you need. And then make sure that you're nurturing, you got a really good nurturing plan in place for at least 6 months before that starts yielding some results. The thing I do know is the people who are using this at a high level are making sure that they're spending the same amount every single month. So let's just say I want to start averaging about a deal a month from my online lead generation. I'm going to budget that, and let's say it costs $2 a lead. I'm going to budget $200 a month so that I can get 100 leads a month. And then once I start getting into 6 months or so, now I can start expecting one of those transactions from 6 months ago to start closing. So now as I start getting into 6 months to a year, all the previous year's work that I've done is going to start yielding those results. So I should get, again, 1 to 3 transactions starting to close every month, as long as I'm consistently going after 100 leads a month. So that's a really great way to do it, right? Now, a couple of ways to add, contacts into our database in Command if you're using Command. We can do that just by manually going into Command and entering them in. And then if you download Command Mobile, you can go in there on the app and put people in on the app, which I think is great. Because ultimately, if I'm holding an open house, somebody comes into the open house, I don't need to wait until the open house is over and then go into the office or go home, get on my computer and enter all those people into the database. In between people coming into my my open house, I'm just putting their information straight into Command right from the app. And then as they walk out of the open house, I can set them up on a smart plan literally the minute they walk out of the house. So now they're starting to get that immediate text message or that immediate email from me, thanking them for coming into the open house and then getting them kind of connected to me before they go to the next open house and get connected to another real estate agent. So adding contacts, it doesn't have to just be on your computer. You can do that on your phone as well too, which is super important. Okay. Any other unique things that you guys are doing using command to market to your people that you guys want to share? Now, I'm not going to sit there and preach command. However, if you're not using anything, you got a really, really good tool that you could be utilizing, and it's not costing you any money to do it. So point of the matter is make sure that you're using a CRM, that you're posting on social, that you're using some of the lead generation abilities that your CRM has to offer, because it's going to make a difference. So we talked a little bit about contacts. We can also import groups of people. We can add individuals. So we kind of went over that already. So let's take a look at this lead generation model again as well. So we've talked about leads. We've talked a little bit about contacts. Now we want to prepare for conversion, right? And we prepare for conversion by these two M's. And if you're following along, this is again on page 58. So the two M's in lead generation is basically the message and method, right? Now if we look at message, right? You can see here that it says match your market and make an offer. What do you think that it means by saying match your market? So if I was going to give a message to a group of buyers right now, how would I match the market in my message to them?
So, no.
Would I talk about in my message the amazing low interest rates that we have? I might not say amazing low interest rates because they've just went up recently. How could I match the market talking about rates? If my what would it look like if my message, if I was to sit there and say, hey, get all-time low, amazing low rates right now, would that be matching the market? No.
You wouldn't want to say that, and interest rates are supposed to go up another 3 times before the end of the year. So maybe use that to create urgency. So yes, we know that interest rates are rising. However, best way to build wealth is through real estate. So let's get you shopping now and not wait.
Yeah, so matching the market wouldn't be talking about all-time low rates. Matching the market would be talking about, hey, let's lock in at the rates that we're at now before they go up even more, because they know that they're going to go up even more, right? So matching the market simply means whatever we're saying, whether it's actual verbal saying to somebody, or if we're putting it into a written message, is what we say matching what's currently going on in the market. Because we don't want to be dated. We don't want to say something that's not really necessarily in our market. Or, for example, let's say prices are falling in a lot of places. We don't want to sit there and say, oh my gosh, prices are falling in places. Now is a great time for all you investors out there to go out there and buy. That might be the message that's happening nationally, but maybe in my local market, stuff's still going up. So am I going to lose my credibility if I'm telling people to buy now because the market's falling when actually prices have increased by 5% in the last 2 months? Probably not, right? So make sure that your message matches what's going on, okay? And then also, who's my target audience for that? Because if I'm sending messages to people about locking in at today's low rates, if they're buyers, that's great. If I'm sending that to home sellers about locking in at today's home rates, I'm wasting that message because it doesn't necessarily apply to them. So if we're looking at this, when we talk about message, we want to match the market. We want to make sure that not only are we matching the market, are we sending that message to the right people? And is the market conditions matching what we're saying in this message as well too? So super important as we're doing that. Another message that we can say is we're making an offer. So as we're making an offer to our people, are we doing a direct offer or are we doing an indirect offer? What's the difference between those two? What do you think? Man, you guys need some more coffee today. And all the people on the East Coast, you guys are 3 hours ahead. It's already 3 o'clock there. Maybe you guys got, margarita time on your mind or something like that. So the difference between the two in terms of direct offer and indirect offer. Direct offer, I knock on Janet's door and I tell Janet, hey, I'll pay you I'll get you a cash offer for $700,000 on your house if you sell it now. That's something like that's a direct offer. So it's something I'm going to go out and I'm going to expect, I'm going to give you an offer for an immediate response, right? So I'm going to go out there and say, do you know, if you list your house with me, I'll pay for a free home inspection, right? An indirect offer is kind of like a marketing piece to where we're going to call you, or we're going to either call you or send you a mailer offering to give you a free CMA, right? So it's not necessarily asking you to take immediate action, or it's not necessarily asking you to list your house with me or sell with me, but it's basically trying to help me build that relationship with you so that at some point I can get a response from you and start to continue to build that. So when you're thinking about that, our offers can either be direct or indirect. Direct is, I want you to make an immediate response, and I want that immediate response to have to do with something that involves me helping you buy or sell your next property. Indirect offer is going to be more of, I'm offering you something that's more just relationship building, not necessarily taking action right away to buy or sell a house. That make sense? Okay, cool. So, and then we talk about message and then method. What are our methods of getting those messages out? Are we going to prospect, or are we going to market? And we talked about the difference between those two. If we're prospecting, we're probably going to make more direct offers, but we can also throw some indirect offers in there too. So I go and knock on Janet's door and I say, Janet, are you? I'm offering. Are you looking to sell your house right now? And Janet tells me no. So I made a direct offer to help her list her house, and she told me no, that she's not looking to. She responded, which is what we want. She said that she's not looking to sell right now. So my indirect offer that I could then throw in there too is, cool. Is there anybody that you can think, or another direct offer is, can you think of anybody that's looking to buy or sell real estate right now? She tells me, yes, awesome. I got, a response back to my direct offer to help somebody else that she knows. Or Janet tells me, no, I can't think of anybody that's looking to buy or sell right now. So my second direct offer that I made to her got basically a negative response as well too. Then I say, awesome, Janet. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time to connect with me today. I put out a monthly newsletter that I like to send out to the people that are in the neighborhood because I want to be the local expert here in Poppy Hills Estates. And would you mind if I sent you some materials on what's going on in the neighborhood so you can stay atop of value? Now, I'm not asking, Janet's not going to do any business with me. So the direct offer has been shot down twice. So now I'm going to make an indirect offer to Janet, and she's going to give me permission to market to. Right. So when we're thinking about that, the best offers that we can make to people, or the best messages that we can do with people on that, is ones that involve potentially both a direct and an indirect offer, because I want to get business. And if I can't get business, I want to build a relationship. Okay. And so going back to the method part of that, am I going to prospect or am I going to market? And then if I prospect, what time block am I going to need to do with that? Right. So in other words, prospecting is going to be, I'm going to have to time block more time. Marketing, probably a little bit less time. After I time block that stuff, am I allocating enough time for myself to prepare, take action, and maintain what it is that I'm trying to accomplish? Okay. Oh, thanks for the heads up. The video is off. I've been on Zoom too much today, and so my camera battery must have died a little bit. So I'll switch over to my crummy computer one. There we go. Not quite as good definition, but I'll give my good camera a chance to recharge a little bit, and then I'll pop back on. So thanks, Janet. Any questions on message, method, and matching the market or making offers? Cool. All right. So now that takes us into, excuse me, some of the lead generation model. Again, we're looking at, actually let me go back on this. So we're on page 58. So we're going to go to page 60 now. Okay. And it says, look back on the buyers and sellers activity, part 1 on page 10, right? So we talked a little bit about buyers and sellers. Reflect on the types of buyers and sellers you identified in the same group as before. Develop your message by answering the questions below for the top 2 buyers and top sellers on your list. So thinking back to yesterday, we talked about who's buying right now, who's selling right now. So if you were to go out there and offer to, what offer could motivate them to transact in a shifted market? So if you're thinking about your top 2 buyer groups, what would get them to actually make an offer on a property? If you're thinking about your top 2 seller group, what offer could you make that would make them sell their property? And then think about what concerns or misconceptions would it help to address in this message, right? So what are the concerns that you can alleviate for them? So I want you to think about your top 2 sellers, top 2 buyers. What would motivate them to actually take action in the market? And then what concerns could you head off by addressing those issues? And then the second question says, what kind of experience and information would they get if they contacted you to help them buy or sell versus contacting a competitor? So in this market, what can you do for them that another competitor can't? So I want you to think about and answer those 2 questions. And then the third question says, assume you're making a social media post for your top motivated buyer or seller. What would you say? So if you're going to create a social media post, what would you say? So let's take about 10 minutes. This will take us to about 12:28. And then we'll debrief this a little bit. And then that will take us to the first break here. And then we'll break for just a little bit. Okay. So about 10 minutes here to answer that question. And this, again, if you need to know, we are on page 60. Okay, so if you're a little bit, if you're still working on that's okay. I'm gonna start back up here again a little bit because I want to make sure that we get through some of this stuff and we get caught up a little bit. So what are some, looking back at that now, who are some of the buyers or sellers that, let's just ask one quick example here. If we're looking at a buyer or seller who's ready, willing, and able and motivated right now, what might that look like in our market right now? Who might that be? What do you guys think? Someone who needs to sell their house to get money to buy. Okay. Okay, cool. So maybe I got a new job and I have to sell my house because I got to transfer to this next place, and then I got to have the money to buy this new place that I'm buying. How do we find those people? So if we were going to think about that kind of buyer, how would we systematically lead generate to find those types of people? What do you guys think? Empty nesters, growing family. That's a good one, Janet. Open houses, door knock around open houses. So those are all really great ideas on things that we could do to go market for those people. Now, if we were to go out and say, for example, what kind of information would those people need or want? Going into that second question. So if you were going to give them a message, I'm going to use Kathy's example there. I'm going to go door knocking around some of the open houses. And this is an area where there's a lot of potential future empty nesters, like Janet had said. What could I take to them? What their houses are going for, how fast they're selling. There's some other things, somebody like that. Let's just use Janet's example on an empty nester. Besides values, what else might I be thinking about that would be important that I could specifically use? Remember, we're going to talk about empty nesters here. We're talking about message. Are we giving the message relevant to that specific demographic? And what information could we give them? Values, information on 55 plus communities could be really valuable, right? Maybe information on how to declutter my house, or information on having effective, yard sales, because I'm looking to downsize. I need to get rid of some stuff. How can I get rid of most of this stuff? Estate sale information. That's huge. KW is actually starting to build out a community so that people that really specialize in estate planning and estate real estate can, collaborate and connect and get together. So that's a new community that's getting started. Information on home repairs. So we need to make sure that those types of things are really, really great. They are going to give us the ability to really connect with that specific type of seller or buyer that we're looking at. Now, if we were to create a social media post around that, what might we do? What do you think? Maybe I have a little image on my post of a bird nest that's empty. And I could say something along the lines of, suddenly an empty nester, come to my webinar on learning a little bit more about estate planning, how to downsize, what your markets, what your real estate current real estate market values look like, and plans to help you with your estate, right? So social media should match, again, that method or that message that you're trying to get across as well. Cool. And now this is the thing too, is you guys leave here today, take this information on those people who you think are today's buyers and sellers, and also what we talked about, who's going to be tomorrow's buyers and sellers, and making sure, okay, hey, how can I lead generate to these people, and what message and what information do they need, right? Because I can get a CMA from anybody, but if Kathy brings me information on estate planning, on 55 plus communities, on relocation to top retirement type places, on 1031 exchanges, all things that people in that demographic are going to be considering or concerned about. Now, my emotional proximity to Kathy has just increased by a ton, because she's not just giving me real estate information that every real estate agent on the planet's giving me. She's giving me stuff specific to what my issues are and what my concerns are. Okay. Awesome. Like I said, I'm going to keep moving here. We're going to go about another 10 minutes before we take the break, because I want to try to power through a couple things here before we head out. Okay. All right. So going back to this, that's how we prepare contacts for conversion. We just keep giving them offerings based on the needs that they specifically have, right? So let's take a look at the next slide now. And we are, if you are following at home, let me get my manual up here for just a second. Give me 1 second. So we should be on roughly about page 62 right now is what we're going to go to. Okay. So let me open this back up. View slideshow 62. So connect, more than small talk. The things that we want to pay attention to, and this again is on page 62, says the goal with leads and contacts is to connect. Connecting is more than small talk. What does it mean to connect with someone, and how does KW technology help you connect with people? So some things like smart plans. I'm sending automated text messages. I'm sending automated emails. I'm wishing people happy birthday on their birthday that's being automated, right? Those are all things that how the technology can help us. And then think about scripts and dialogues that have been successful for you in converting leads into appointments. How might they be modified into a shift? So go back through the favorite scripts that you have. And again, we're not going to do that here right now, but think about the things that have been really successful in having you convert people. How might those things have to tweak, or how might those things have to change? And a really brilliant idea that I heard in terms of a way to think about this is, if you ever talk to Jason Abrams, Jason seems like he's making a really individualized conversation to you in a lot of cases, when in reality, it's just a series of scripts. And the reason Jason says that he always knows what to say, no matter what the situation is that they are basically Lego blocks, meaning that I'm going to have a script for little small increments of things. And then depending on what you tell me, and then depending on the situation, I'm going to stack these different Lego blocks together to create an individualized approach for whoever I'm talking to. So now you feel like it's tailored specifically for you, and it doesn't even seem like it's a script. However, literally everything that Jason's saying is a script. And how I know that he does that really, really well is I'm around him enough and listen to him talk to different people. And he says the same thing. He just in all these different conversations, they're just a different format, or they're in a different order, or he might have taken a bit from here and a bit from here and put those together, right? So think about the scripts that you have, and how might we want to tweak those. And so here are 6 connection questions that you want to make sure that you ask. Who are they, right? What do they want or need to do? You always need to ask that one, because as a good agent, it's all about needs analysis. What do they need to accomplish, and how can I help them get there? Okay. Where do they want or need to do it? So you need to find out where. So who, what, where. Why do they want or need to do it? That one's super important, especially as in a shift, because as we get buyer reluctancy or seller reluctancy on selling, we need to find out what motivated them to do that in the first place. And if they can't accomplish that by not selling or not buying, then we need to remind them of, hey, Joe, you said that it was really important to you to live by your daughter because she's going to have your first grandchild, and you want to be really close to your first grandchild as they're raising it up. You're telling me that you're getting cold feet about selling your property right now. Do you still want to live by the grandkid? What's changed? I just want to make sure that I really know what your motivation is, because I thought that was really important to you. And so now all I'm doing is reminding them of why they wanted to do that in the first place. And then now I can kind of get them back in check. And then Joe says, yeah, it really is still important to me, but I'm really concerned about this. Okay. Is that it? Is that the only thing? Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing. All right, well, let's figure that out. And if we can figure that out and you can still move to be about close to your daughter and your new grandson, are you ready to go? Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So getting that why out is really important. When do they want or need to do it? So timeline, we need to get timelines, and how do they plan to do it? And we're part of that process in creating that. And some transitions to use as you're listening and as you're questioning people. Make sure that you're acknowledging them. Thanks for sharing. If you would, could you please share? Would you be offended if I asked? Always be asking lots of questions so that you find out the motivation, because by finding out the motivation, you're going to be better able to get them in line to do what they need to do, right? Because that's what this is really all about. Our role is not to sell people, right? Our job really is to find out, what do they want to do? When do they need to do it? Why do they want to do it? And getting them to act in their own best interest so they can accomplish what they want to accomplish, right? It's not even really selling a house. It's doing those things. Because if we do those things, we're going to make a lot of money. Any questions on that? Okay, cool. Well, let's just keep moving. All right. So again, those are the other parts there. So finding the motivated, again, the challenge is effectively staying in front of people so that they, again, this is really cool. Effectively staying in front of people so that when they think about real estate, they think about you. So some personal touches that you could be doing, again, is, calls, emails, reaching out to people to see how they're doing, what's going on in the current environment, keeping the focus on the conversation personal and not necessarily business driven, because you don't want to develop transactional relationships with people. You want to make sure that you're developing really good, solid relationships with people. Basically initiate virtual happy hours, bingo sessions, be present and personal, just different things on making it about them, not just about the business part of it. Okay. All right, so we're going to skip over the lead generation case study because we've already kind of taken a look at that. But there are some really cool script care calls on page 66 that you can do that make it less about business and more about people, right? And then there's a little bit of some things on here on preparing contacts for conversion on page 68, which we have saturate, which is 19 to connect. These are 19 touches a year that we should do to really get to know somebody. And then we need to, so things like, quarterly call, 12 touches, 2 touches, 1 touch for an annual party or event. So we are going to do that. And then we're going to cement the relationship by doing a high value touch. Maybe I take them to dinner or lunch or whatever like that. And then afterwards, we're going to put them on 36 touches a year. So when we just meet somebody, we want to kind of follow this plan and then cement the relationship. And then moving forward, after you're in my database and you're a contact and I know you, then we want to make sure that we're hitting you 36 times a year. 4 telephone calls, 26 touches biweekly, which we have the biweekly neighborhood nurture, which is a really good one in our smart plans. Doing 2 touches like events or get-togethers or parties, and then 4 touches like promotional mail. So you got the recipe right here to stay in nurturing, to nurture our people. Any questions on that? Okay. So now, how do we get them to repeat the business? We go in and we, there's some closes that are on page 70 that you can take a look at, right? So goal is always to convert a lead to an appointment, get new business, repeat business, things like that. So I'm not going to read just line by line on each one of these closes, but there are a good list of things that you could put in here to get people to convert to meet with you. Okay, and that's on page 70. Okay. So that's kind of the lead gen model. We talked a lot about going and what prospecting and marketing are. We talked about how to generate those leads and get them into the database and nurture those contacts. We talked about the offering needs-based offerings to get them to actually take action and how to basically get them to continue to use us and refer us. Okay. This is all the same things that we talked about as well too. So I'm going to kind of skip ahead too. And that kind of brings us to the close of this particular section. What are some ahas that we had just now? And then we'll head out for break. Two ahas, and then we'll go to break. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep you here for the next hour and a half and we won't say anything. It's important to stay connected. Good one, Janet. What else? What's one more thing that was an aha that we maybe hadn't thought about? We have a recipe here, right? We have the 19 contacts. We have the one cement activity, and we have the 36 touch. My buddy Mario, be systematic with your lead gen. That's a good one too. Okay. All right, so we are at 12:31. I'm going to do a little shorter break today. Instead of 10 minutes, we're just going to go 9. I want to start right back up at 12:40 so we can make sure that we get through the rest of the content here. Okay. Thanks for, and Kyle says, add the buyers to your database that bought your listings. Yeah, right. I'm taking them over, right? All right, we'll see you guys at 12:40 Pacific, 3:40 if you're on Eastern time. I got, we're going to get started again here. I got a text message from my good buddy, Patrick Bill, who was on the call yesterday, and he said he couldn't be on the call today, but he sent me a text message that is really timely in the sense we're going to talk a little bit about being data driven and making sure we understand our market today. So I want to share this with you, this text message. So give me a second here. I'm going to share my phone screen. And let me make sure that I connect to the Zoom with my phone. Give me 1 second. There we go. And now this is basically what he had sent to me. And it's a little thing that he got from Zillow, which a lot of us rely on. We don't go out there and necessarily learn things ourselves. We rely on information that's given to us, and then we just regurgitate that to our people. This is why it's important to really know that you're getting your information from reputable sources, because the thing that Patrick had texted me is he's like, so much for the AI. What he showed here is what he got, something he got from Zillow. And it said that the typical home value in the 95377 zip code is $872,000. A year ago, that typical value was $690, $622. Now, not necessarily disputing that, but one of the things that Patrick had pointed out is they are forecasting a 13.6% increase in increased value over the next year. And inventory is going up and sales are going down. And so the thing that Patrick brought up to me is we can't necessarily just rely on this information that we get from things like that. And we have to be the local economists for our people, because to sit there and think that we're going to have almost a 14% increase in an area where inventory is increasing and home sales are decreasing and inflation's out of control, we're probably not going to see a 14% increase. So if our consumers are seeing this too, right, what are we doing to be able to have more intelligent conversations with them? And that's what we're going to cover in the next section here. So Patrick just sent that to me literally. He must have ESP because we're just going to talk about that right now. But I wanted to bring that up and show to you guys or share with you guys. All right, so we're going to hop back in. Shifting your activities to thrive. So talking about pricing to sell, motivating buyers, and bulletproofing the transaction. Those are some of the things that we're going to really be talking about here. Okay. So using your resources, what are the resources that we have available to us to get our data, right? We have the MLS. We have our websites that we have, if we look at our website that Command gives us, we can get information on neighborhoods. And with the information on the specific neighborhoods, we can get things like days on market, prices, all those things. Where are some other really good places that you guys have that you think that we can get for our resources? So Mario said local and state and national boards. Those are all really good things too. What are some other resources that we can use to get data about the real estate market so we can be the economists for our people? Property radar, right? That's a good one too, especially if you start getting into like some distress sales, because property radar has a lot of good information about distress sales on there. All right. Trend graphics is another good one as well. Also, it's important that we become a hyper local expert and we know what's going on locally, because what's going on locally might be different than what's going on nationally. However, is there some merit to making sure that you're reading national stuff too? Why is it important to read national stuff? What do you think? People like to move to other states, so that's important, obviously. Domino effect. What do you mean by domino effect, Janet?
I've heard and seen that there's some markets that other areas follow. So in some of the bigger markets, yeah.
Right. So, you know, if we know that we're in a market that's going to be impacted by another market, making sure that we're paying attention to that.
Well,
I have a MAPS client that is based out of Anchorage, Alaska. And that's one of the things that we're coaching or we're talking about is what are the markets where people are coming from into Alaska over the last couple of years. And obviously that market is going to be affected by those areas, right? Because now people might not be coming in from them anymore. So we need to pay attention to what's going on in those spots.
Well, even in a more micro place like Northern California, the Bay Area really starts shifting, Central Valley will follow.
Yep. Important. Here's the other thing why you need to pay attention to national media. Where are your consumers getting their information? They're getting their information from watching TV. They're getting their information from Zillow. They're getting their information from CNN or Wall Street Journal or wherever. And so you want to know the messages that they're hearing so that when your message is different, you know how to have that conversation with them. So, hey, Joe, I get it. I know that on the Wall Street Journal, I know Zillow, I know CNN is saying that values are holding stable in most markets. However, our local market here, we're actually starting to see a little bit more of a dip, right? Values are down by X% over the last 3 months or the last quarter, and here's where we're at. And if you don't know what's going on nationally, you're missing out on what your clients or potential clients are going to object to you on. So make sure that we're the local economists of choice and we know our local numbers. We also need to know the national stuff too. So let the numbers tell a story, the things that we're going to want to pay attention to. So here is a good list of the things that you're going to want to pay attention to in terms of different numbers that you should always be aware of. You want to know what the total pending listings are, right? You want to know what the total closed listings are. You want to know the total expired listings. Expired is going to be really important now because now we're going to get opportunities at other expired listings because houses aren't going to just sell. And then also it's going to be important to know the expired listings and the prices they expired at, because now those comps that we were using, suddenly we see that they're not selling it, they're actually expiring. Now that's going to give us the ability to have better conversations with our current listings that we're looking at taking on where we should price. And then that's going to also give us some fuel to have some price reduction conversations as well too. Same thing with average days on market. We want to know that stuff. We want to look at the new listings per week or month. That way we see what competition that we're going to be dealing with when we go onto the market. And then we also want to pay attention to the total active listings. Those are the main numbers or the main statistics as real estate agents that we want to keep paying attention to so that we're really knowledgeable about that. Because I want to know what's active, because I want to know how many, be able to compare that to how many pendings we have. Because if the pendings are going down, not as many things are getting into contract, we're going to need to be priced maybe a little bit more aggressively to get those, to be able to get your house pending, right? If closings are down, kind of the same thing. If closings are up and a lot of transactions are moving, then we can maybe price a little bit more aggressively. So if you don't know how to do this calculation, or if you haven't done this before, this just gives you a quick graph on how to calculate the months of inventory. So the months of inventory is the number of active homes divided by the number of sales in the last 30 days. So just to give you an example, if I was to sit there and say, hey, listen, there is, I don't know, 440 active homes on my market right now. And let's just say the number of sales in the last 130 days were 130, right? So then that would come out, if there were 444 active homes and 130 homes sold in the last 30 days, that would tell me we have about 3.38 months worth of inventory. Why is knowing months of inventory important? It's going to tell you how long it's probably going to take potentially to sell your client's house. In addition to that, it's going to tell us what kind of market we're in. If like a year ago, Janet, a year ago in Ripon, how many months of inventory were?
Less than a month.
Yeah, it was probably like 14 days.
Yeah.
Right. Now, what are we starting to creep up into and see?
Oh my gosh. We have 47 on the market today. So what, 3 months, something like that?
Yeah. So as we see that, now we're going to know that we're starting to shift, right? There's more competition. More competition means we're going to have to price a little bit more aggressively, right? Any questions on that? And then Leanne brought up a good point too. This is going to help us determine the buyer balances or the seller market, right? 5 months or less is typically a seller's market. So we're pretty much still in a seller's market, which is why the values are still holding pretty strong in most areas. And I just looked at our numbers for the region today in Maryland, and values are still up. However, the inventory is increasing. So I'm anticipating that as we start getting closer to that 5 month mark, then we'll start to see some of those values start to decline. So a couple things that are going to help you guys be able to work with motivated sellers, okay? Which is just a great sheet that you guys can utilize to help you guys sell more properties, or at least more listings. So when you sell this home, where are you going next? I want to find out where you want to go. How soon do you need to be there? So Jim tells me that he needs to move in within the next 2 years. Probably not super motivated right now. But then, Dave tells me that he's got a job transfer starting in Arizona in the next 60 days, and so he needs to sell his home probably pretty quick. He's going to be motivated. So that's the whole point of this exercise is helping you analyze seller needs, so you know who's motivated and who's ready to sell. So finding out where they're going, how soon they need to be there. These are all the same questions that we went over before the break. Why are you moving? Dave's moving because he's got a job transfer. I know he needs to move. Have you thought of selling yourself? Some people argue on asking that question. What do you think the point of asking that question is? Because some people say, hey, I don't want to ask them that question because then I might give them an idea to do it. What would be the pro for asking it, and what would you think would be the con of asking that? I think the con is maybe you give them an idea to sell it themselves. Why would it be a good idea to ask them? Got a couple.
John, I think when you ask that question, you're going to be able to identify all of the work that you're going to be putting into selling their home as an agent, and if they're willing to tackle, or if they're willing to understand all of the activities that we do as agents.
I think that's really important to do, is that one, in a normal market or in the market that we were just in, I might not actually ask that question, right? If this was a year ago and I was on a listing presentation, maybe I don't even ask that question, because my dog could have probably sold the house a year ago and gotten $50,000 over list price, right? However, I want to ask that question now that we're going into a shift, because maybe they don't recognize that you're actually going to have to work to sell the property. And I'm going to list all the things that I'm going to do. And are you ready to do all these things? And are you ready to tackle the challenges of high inflation and high interest rates and lack of buyers coming through and holding open houses every week and things like that? So one, I discourage them from actually trying to do it themselves. And then the other thing, I'm also setting them up to let them know about all the value and things that I can provide that nobody else is going to offer to them either. Right? So getting really clear on that is going to set you up on the ability to really let them know the value you can bring to the table. This is my favorite one to ask, is what expectations do you have for me? A lot of agents don't ask that question. This is, if I asked one question, that would be it. And that's like one of the first questions I ask all my MAPS clients. As a coach, what expectations do you have for me? Because here's the thing, I might have an idea on what I think that you need, but there might be something that I'm not considering that if I don't do that for you, you're going to be disappointed. And I don't want anybody walking away disappointed, right? So being really, really clear on the things that I need to do for you or that are important to you need to happen. This is a big one, because this is, what do you owe on the property? Can they sell? Or does this need to potentially be a short sale? Okay. What do you want to list your home for? I know that's kind of opening up a can of worms, but ultimately you want to have the expectation. So Mario asks me, what do I want to sell for? And I tell him 500 grand, right? That's great. It doesn't matter if I'm right on the money or not right on the money. Mario, the next thing he's going to ask me is what? Mario, you're going to ask me is, what's important about you getting 500 grand for the house?
Start
I
peeling
might just
back
be
the
throwing
onion.
a random number out there, but it might not actually even be important. Well, I don't know. I just figured that's how much it's worth. Okay, what do you need to sell it for? What are you trying to accomplish? Because if I can get you that, and I can get you to accomplish your goals, does whatever the actual number of sale matter, or is it more important on what you take away so that you can accomplish the things that you need to accomplish? And then you might find that Mario might find that if he asks that question, that my number is actually not really 5. I was just thinking that was important. What I really need to do in order to get out of this house is be able to get 480 for it. So if I sell for 480, then I can accomplish what I need to accomplish. And yeah, the extra 20 grand would be nice, but I really would like to get down to the Florida Keys sooner than later. And so for me, if we can get 480, that lets me get done what I want to get done. Right. And then this is a good question to ask too. What are your plans if your home doesn't sell? Because lately, I think most sellers are thinking that, hey, of course my house is going to sell. And not only is it going to sell, I'm going to get $100,000 more than we list for it. Well, that's not going to happen in this market. Right. So if it doesn't sell, what are you going to do? And get them to think about that. Because I think that will help you determine their motivation too. Because if they sit there and say, oh, well, I guess I'll just hang out, I'm not going to sell my house, then they might not be super motivated. So getting them to really conceptualize that, I think, is really important. Any questions on these questions? Listing consult. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this. If you're not using a listing consult, or if you haven't, because again, let's face it, I could have been the real estate agent of the year in this last market by going to somebody's house and basically taking a couple pictures on my iPhone, signing a listing agreement, putting it on the MLS and doing nothing else, right? We want to be professional, so we want to have a good listing presentation done. The reason this slide is on here is because we have great listing presentations already built for you in Command. If you don't know how to do that, each one of you guys should have a Market Center Tech trainer. If you do not have a Market Center Tech trainer, reach out to your team leader and they can connect you with your regional technology trainer, and they can walk you through the process of using Command to customize and create a really good listing presentation. Because we are going to have to really show up much better than just, here's the listing agreement, I'll get you 100 grand more than we listed for in 2 days. That's not going to work anymore. Okay. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. This one I want to spend just a second for, right? The challenge, pricing homes in a stunting or shifting market can be tricky, and communicating pricing strategies to sellers even trickier. So I'm going to go over here. Solution is explain to sellers that if you price a home for the current market, you risk being priced above market as it continues to contract, or well below market if it continues to expand. The trick is to price 3 months ahead of the market so clients avoid costly price reductions. Right? Approach motivated sellers first regarding price reductions. When more light is shed on where the market is heading, approach less motivated sellers. This ensures you don't risk losing listings by having the wrong conversations at the wrong time. And then during listing presentations, use visual aids like graphs that chart home prices month over month, projecting home prices 3 months out. Use spreadsheet to walk sellers through different pricing scenarios, charting how their desired price might be above or below market further down the line based on current trends. So a couple of things with this really fast. Super important to price really, really well here. And I think that's a great strategy in the sense of, hey, I'm going to list your house today, what it's going to what I think it might potentially sell for 3 months from now. Because now I got a much bigger period of time, so I'm not going to have to do price reductions later. We're coming out of the gate pretty aggressive here, and we should hopefully get your house sold before we have to get down to that price, especially if the market is actually starting to slide a little bit. And we talked, I think, just a little bit about this yesterday, is you start getting into a market where prices are declining, you run into some risky stuff, because, you know, Joe is my seller. Joe wants to list at 500. I say the house is worth 475. I let Joe talk me into going at 500. 2 months pass, or a month passes. Let's just say a month passes. House doesn't sell at 5. Joe comes to me and now says, hey, John, I'm willing to go down to that 475 that you suggested that we go to. And then now I got to tell Joe, hey, you missed the mark, because the house was worth that 5 weeks ago. Now the house is actually worth 460. And so then you're just chasing the market down. So having these conversations and showing where prices are going to probably go is really, really important, so that we get our sellers to price accurately out of the gate, and not just accurately for what's going on now, but throwing in the fact that by the time we get the house on the market and get into the contract, prices might retract a little bit. So again, using that barometer of, based on where we're at right now and where we're projecting values to go within the next 3 months, let's price it 3 months from now, not today. Because what's closing today was what it went into the contract 3 months ago or 2 months ago or whatever, right? It's not, and those things were priced when the market was a little bit higher. That's why when I'm looking at comps, I typically like to look at newer pending comps that went into contract. And it, hopefully, if they put in there what the price, or what the price was when they went into contract, those are some good ones to utilize. If they didn't, I would call up the agents on the pending deals and say, hey, what do you go into contract for, if you don't mind telling me? Because I'm getting ready to list a property and I want to make sure that the values are in line with what we need to hit now. And the other thing I really, really like, that bullet point number 2 there, is if I know I'm going to have a tough time going to Janet and telling her to reduce her property, I'm going to go to Mario first, because I know Mario's more open to that conversation. And then Mario's going to do the price reduction. Now, when Mario does the price reduction, how's that going to help me with Janet? Well, when I go to Janet, I can show that all these different competitors have done price reductions on their properties. And that's why maybe she should do it too. So she's going to be a lot more apt to do that price reduction when she sees other people are doing it. If I start with the hard people first, they're reluctant to do it because they don't see anybody else doing it, right? So I think that's a really, really smart thing to do is if you got a big list of sellers, start out with the ones that are going to be more open to the price reductions before going to the harder ones. Any questions on this tactic? All right, shift the focus. What do you think it means to tell the truth? It seems like it should be pretty, I mean, we should just do that anyway. But what do you think that it means in here on telling the truth?
Is that when so many people are just like, yeah, I could sell your house 200,000 above, the market value.
Yeah, don't
Don't
tell them
lie.
what they, it's not that you're lying, but don't tell them that what they want to hear. Be honest with them. Because
Mhm.
here's the thing is when I first got into business, my brother-in-law at the time told me, he was a business guy, and he told me, John, if you do a good job for somebody, they might tell one of their friends. If you do a bad job for somebody, they're going to tell everybody they know. Right. And I think the same thing happens here is if we tell, Joe what he wants to know or what he wants to hear, and we don't sell his house, or we do sell his house and he loses a bunch of money, he's going to trash us. And what I would rather do is I would rather be honest with Joe right out of the gate. And if he doesn't pick me to be his agent because I'm being honest with him, at least he's not bad mouthing me and ruining my reputation after the transaction's over, or when I don't sell his house, he's not bad mouthing me to everybody else. I would rather take that, right? So tell the truth, right? Set real expectations as Janet says, and give them good and bad news, as Kathy had said. Make sure that you're leveraging the media, and we talked a little bit about that already. If you know what the media is saying is inaccurate, use your local data to dispute that to overcome those objections. In addition to that, though, we can also leverage the media in our favor. If it's saying things about what's going on in the market that corroborate what we're basically trying to get across to our people, hey, I'm going to send that article from the Wall Street Journal to my client. So because it's basically saying the same thing that I'm saying, right? That's why it's good to be able to look at articles. And then the last one says here is listen to the sellers. Listen to this, ask them the questions. You shouldn't talk too much when you're talking to a seller. Ask them questions and listen, because they're going to tell you how to approach them and how to sell them and what you need to do to accomplish the goals. Okay. And as Mario says, set and manage their expectations, update regularly. That's a big one, right? Making sure that you're updating them. Quick question came in too that I saw that I missed. Melissa had said, how do you forecast what it might be 3 months from now in terms of pricing out in a declining market? What potentially houses might sell for? What you basically do is what I always do is or at least when I was selling a lot of foreclosures during the last shift, is I would go and I would look at what the prices were in the last 2 months versus what they were kind of like the previous 2 months or so. Or you could use 2 or 3 months, depending on the location. And then, if over the last 3 months, the market values declined by, say, 2% over the previous 3 months, is there any reason why I think that might get worse, might be about the same or better? And if political climate and buyer activities don't change, I'm going to probably sit there and say it's going to probably be another 2% over the next quarter, right? If we've really reached out or maxed out and stuff, I'm starting to see stuff change and more and less inventories hitting and more buyers are out, then I might cut that down. Instead of 2%, maybe I might say, okay, hey, listen, stuff might decline 1% or so in the next, or 1.5% or so in the next 3 months. And then on the other end of that, if rates are going up and inventory is really starting to get bigger, even though the last 2 months maybe had a 2% decline, I might sit there and say, hey, I'm going to anticipate maybe a 3% decline, because even though it was the previous quarter was only a 2% loss, our inventory is still getting bigger. Rates are continuing to go up and closed sales aren't happening. So it's just kind of like feeling it out. Look at what the previous quarter was and say, okay, is the market, contracting? Is it expanding? Is it staying flat? If it is doing any of those things, then I'm going to kind of adjust that a little bit more. Okay.
Thanks. Awesome.
Scripts. Really important. This is a maps coach I had a long time ago. I'm not going to say too much about this, but a maps coach I had a long time ago basically told me, she said, hey, this was a script too, which is pretty funny. She said, hey, John, who's your favorite actor? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really necessarily even watch that many movies. And then she was, okay, what's your favorite movie of all time and who was the actor there? So I said, okay, my favorite movie of all time was Braveheart. So we'll just say Mel Gibson. And then she asked me, she said, John, how much does Mel Gibson get paid to make a movie right now? And I said, I don't know. I think at the time it was something like $25 million a picture. And she goes, okay, $25 million. We'll just go with that. $25 million to make one movie. Right. And she asked me, she said, and this just kind of blew me away. She said, and she asked me, she said, John, what exactly does Mel Gibson do to earn that $25 million? And I said, well, he makes movies. And she said, no, what does he have to do to make the movies? And I was like, well, he has to learn a script. And then it dawned on me what she was getting at is she's like, so you're basically telling me that Mel Gibson can get paid $25 million to learn how to utilize scripts. Why aren't you? Right. And that really kind of like hit home for me as far as that goes, because a lot of times we think that we know what to say or that we don't need scripts, but all scripts do helps us be confident in what we say. We're not going to be at a loss for words. We're not going to stutter or stammer in front of people, which is going to increase our confidence, which is going to increase our emotional proximity with people. So if you're not learning scripts and if you're not learning new scripts that correspond with the market that we're in right now, because we're not in the same market we were. So you're going to need to learn some new stuff, right? And role playing those things and making sure you internalize those so they don't sound robotic. Because that's the number one complaint that everybody says, hey, I don't want to learn scripts because I'm going to sound like a robot instead of a human being. And that, kind of my coach kind of threw that same thing back out is, do those actors sound like robots or do they sound like they're actually real people? And I was like, well, yeah, they actually sound real. It's because they're internalizing those scripts and they're actually making it sound like they would say it. So those are all the same things that we need to do too, right? Be prepared. Here's some and pricing persuasion. We all know, do I need to go into the laws of supply and demand too much? I don't think so. Probably not. We all know that supply gets really high, demand gets low, prices go down. That's the market we're heading into. The market we came out of, not enough houses, a lot of buyers, demand's really high, prices go up. So as you're starting to see more inventory hit the market, those are the things that we need to talk to our sellers about. Hey, there's a lot more competition out there. There's not a lot of buyers out there. We need to be aggressive. We'll talk a little bit about the tale of two markets as far as that goes. And I think that one might be on a handout on, let's see. Tell two markets, actually, let's stop there for a second, because this is one of the things that a lot of agents that I've showed this to say this slide is one of their favorite things and it helps them more than anything else that they've done. Is we're on page 98. If you guys can flip to 98 really quick. And that's actually on here. So if you don't have the book, you could take a look at it here. So this was a really good slide because here's the thing. when you are looking at the market, right? There are two markets here. There's out of market and there's in market. And there's two things we need to pay attention to is price and condition. And the better the price that you have, or the more aggressive the price is, and the better the condition is, that's going to give us the biggest pool of buyers that are out there, and we're going to have a really good chance to sell our house. Now, the further out you get in terms of if I'm overpriced and my condition's not very good, now I suddenly get out of market, right? Now, I don't know if we look at this in a seller's market like we just came out of, you can be in not very good shape and you could be overpriced and you're probably still going to sell because you have a big pool of buyers and not a lot of houses. So you don't need to be in the best condition and you don't need to necessarily be the cheapest price. So there's very few homes that get out of market in that market. However, stuff's changing. And you can see here that now if I am not in good, it doesn't take me very long, going back to the last one, right? It doesn't take me very much in terms of condition or price to suddenly lose all the buyers because the buyer market has shrunk. And so some agents that I've shown this to have really, I mean, one agent came back to me like later that day and said she went on a listing appointment and got a better price for the listing because she showed these slides and it made total sense to her seller. So slide deck, if you hang out until the end of the class, I'll go into Connect and I'll show you where the link is to pull these slides out if you want to incorporate some of these slides. Otherwise, they are in your handout as well too. Does this make sense? Any questions on this? These three slides are huge, I think, because now you can show, hey, in the normal market, this is what it looks like, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. In a market we came out of, we don't need to be, we could be not in great condition, we can be overpriced, and we're still going to have a buyer pool. In the market we're at right now, you get out of condition or your property's not in very good condition or you're overpriced, we lose pretty much all buyers that might be interested in the property. Okay. And then here's a really good slide that you can use on the side by side, right? You got in the market, you got no man's land, and you got out of the market. And so basically what this one is saying is that if you're in the market, you have about 67%, you're in better condition than about 67% of the homes that are out there. And that you're priced in the lowest 33% of the comps. In no man's land, you're 67% of basically of the comps that are out there are in better condition than your house. And 33% of the properties are priced worse than yours, but 67% of the properties are priced better, right? And then you get into just out of market where no transactions are going to happen. Okay.
Question is on the colors, the blue and the red, what do they mean?
The colors don't necessarily mean anything. It just means that this is more of supposed to be, I think, a teal shade. So in the green, you're good. In the red, you're probably not so good. And in the gray, you're just not anything.
And by out of market, you mean priced out of market, like they're for sale, but they're
well, it could be one of two things. We're looking at condition and we're looking at price, meaning that hey, if there are 67% of the homes that are on the market are in better condition than mine, what's the only way I'm going to even remotely have a chance to sell this thing is to ask nothing for it, right? Yeah. And then on the flip side, same thing is if 67% of the homes are priced better than mine, and even if mine is in immaculate condition, I'm probably still out of the market. Because, I don't care if if Janet has the same house as I do, and I'm asking for 800 and she's asking let's just say 700 or 675, I better have $125,000 worth of upgrades to justify that price. Because if I don't, even if my house is a little bit nicer than hers, somebody can, do a whole lot with $125,000. Right.
Got it. Okay.
So buy-in through self-discovery. These are really, really great questions to ask, because ultimately, how do people make decisions the best? By making the decision themselves rather than feeling like somebody made the decision for them. So, Mr. Seller, here are the numbers. What do you think we do? I'm giving you the information. What do you think that we do with it? Because now if they say, hey, John, I think we price aggressively. Awesome. Right? House is worth, let's say the house is worth 600 grand. And, I suggested that we go at about 585 because that's probably 3 months out. So, hey, here is the numbers. Here's the price. Mr. Seller, what do you think we do? Hey, John, I think we go at 585. Cool. Hey, John, I think we go at 615. Well, based on what I've given you, what's making you justify that? Always put it kind of back on them. Find out what their rationale is for making the decision that they're making, because ultimately then we can pinpoint or find out why it is that they're saying what they're saying. And let's just face it, at some point they might just say, I don't care what any of the numbers show. I think I should get 625 for my house, even though it's only worth 6. Then it might be a situation where I just say, hey, listen, you're hiring me to do a job. This is where I think that we should be. I don't want to let you down as an agent. So you might be better off finding somebody else to list the property because I can't do what you need me to do. All right. And then you just move on. Janet.
Well, you said a key word, find out what their rationale is for that price. But what if there is no rationale? It's just, I don't want to give away the house. I'm trying and trying and trying. I give them trends reports, charts, graphics. I give them a drip system of their neighborhood where they find out if there's a price reduction or a pending. How do you find out their rationale? They're not rational.
Well, if they're not rational, then that might be a case where they're not a motivated seller, and maybe I don't deal with you in this market. And I might sit there and say, hey, listen, I got this real estate agent, Janet, who I think would probably be better suited to assist you. Would you mind if I connected you with her? And then I can send a referral out. And if you end up selling the house, great, I get a referral. If not, then I didn't waste my time.
Yeah.
Right. A couple other good questions you can ask, given what I've shown you about the market, what do you think buyers would be willing to pay for your house? Put your buyer hat on. This is something that I know some top agents do that I really like, is I'm going to take you through the comps before we talk about pricing your house. And I want you to gauge how you feel your house compares or stacks up to these other houses. And then now we have a conversation. These other houses are $50,000 better than yours because they've all been updated. And I ask you what the value you think that we should put on the house would be. You tell me that you think that we should get the same for the house as these other ones. I'm going to bring up those updates and say, well, as a buyer, why would I buy your house versus buying these other ones first? Right? Looking at the comparables for your neighborhood, how much would you be willing to pay for it if you were buying your own house? So putting that back on them. Okay, great. You think that you should get the same price as the other houses. Now tell me, if you were a buyer in the neighborhood right now, looking at the other 3 houses that we went on and your house based on the same price, which one do you buy first? Well, this other one has a pool and it has a renovated kitchen. I would probably go with that one first. Well, then why do you want the same value as that house when it has a pool and a renovated kitchen? You yourself said that you would buy that house first, right? So questions that get them to think about putting them in the shoes of the buyer. And we can do the same thing with our buyers. If you were the seller, what kind, based off of what you know on the market and what I've shown you, and based on what I've shown you is closed and gotten into contract, what do you think that, what would it take for you as a seller to accept the offer that you're putting out? Right? All right, looks like self-discovery. Yep, Mario, it's a great tool. Don't chase the market. In a falling market, sellers have three options. I can either be behind the market, at the market, or ahead of the market. Pricing behind the market means the seller is not going to ever sell. House is worth $475. I list at $5. Not going to sell. And it says there, buyers have no faith in the current market and fear paying too much. When everything is priced alike, buyers get confused because it appears the sellers want too much. So if I'm behind the market, I'm not going to sell. If I'm at the market, it says pricing at the market means being overpriced for what the market will pay at the moment. Meaning, house just closed at 5, but values are declining. I try to price at 5, even though values are declining. Buyers in a shift are shopping for a good deal. This means hunting for the lowest price, homes less than all other homes. So again, why would I, even though a house is just sold at 5, why would, as a buyer, why would I pay 5 when I can see that stuff's starting to go down and I might be able to get a house at 490, or there might be comps out there at 490, right? Pricing ahead of the market means dropping the price below what the market will pay at the current moment. And that's where we want to get sellers to right now, is price ahead of the market, price 3 months out, so that we're going to be the top 2 or 3 homes that buyers look at in the market or in the comps, and we get your house sold. Because ultimately, if we price behind the market, even if we price ahead at the market, even if we price behind the market or at the market, the house doesn't sell, even if we get aggressive 2 or 3 months later, now the window of opportunity for a lot of buyers has passed, and I'm going to have to really significantly price ahead of the market to now get my home sold, right? Any questions on that? And this is a really good graph that you can show sellers too, right? This is the price the seller wants. This is the price correction. This is the price. So then you flatten out, then you got a price correction. They never get it. And what ends up happening as the seller is actually doing stuff is, you can see here, I want this price. I tell them that actually you should be right here. Well, you can see that when you get to here, that price isn't here anymore. The price is way down here. And so you're just constantly chasing, and again, this is at the average home price, and this is the time on the market. So you're just, okay, great, John, I'll reduce the price. Well, the price, that point has passed, because instead of it being flat, like you think that it would be, it's now at a different spot. So instead of it being here, it's actually way down here. So this is really a good graph to show that if they don't price aggressively right out of the gate, they're never going to get the value they want. They're just going to keep chasing the market down, and they're going to lose more money. And you can see this graphic shows the cost of overpricing. In a stable market, it's okay, because in a stable market, I got the initial list price. We got the market interest is at its highest peak kind of in the first week or so. And then it starts to drop a little bit. So we price here. The fair market is stable. We do a price reduction, right? And we could still probably sell at a decent spot. But if you look at this here, in a shifted market, we do initial list price, then we got to do several price reductions. And then now we're starting to get into a sellable price way down here. So it's actually a little bit lower, right? So we're going to lose more money in a shifted market if we overprice. And if you're following along, some of the information on this for your slide deck is on page that's 111, take that back, 106. Okay. Here's a couple other things in terms of some really great slides that you can show people. Is this is basically a statistic. It says source 500,000 real estate transactions from 8 MLSs around the country. If we had no price reductions in a 40-day period, we might sell for $1,000 less than what the listing price was, right? If it takes 86 days to sell a property after a first price reduction, or typically what it's showing is that if you don't do any price reductions, typically the house will sell within 40 days. If you do one price reduction, you typically go from about 40 to 86 days on market. And you end up basically having to do a price reduction in this particular scenario of about $2,500, right? And then if you look at this one, it's about 118 days after 2 price reductions. And now we are at $3,500. Third price reduction, this is about how long it's going to take. And we're looking at, what is this, 500 times 8, that now you're looking at about $4,500. So basically this is cost. So I'm going to lose, if I overprice based on these $500,000 or 500,000 transactions that they showed, if I overprice my property and I end up having to do 3 price reductions, it's going to probably take me close to 6 months, and I'm going to lose at least about $4,500 versus what I could have gotten. And then just another graph here. Basically, if you look at number of price reductions, we can typically get within about 1%. So you can see here, amount selling prices below final list price. So if we don't do any price reductions, typically we're going to sell within about 1% of it, or 1% lower than what list price was. If we do one price reduction of about 4%, then we're going to actually sell about 3% lower than that. So we're going to lose about 7%. If we end up having, this one's a really powerful one right here. So again, the gray is the amount the final list price is below the original price. So if I do a second price reduction that's 7% below original price, I'm going to also probably get a final sales price that's 3% lower than that. So now I lose 10% off of maybe what I could have got. And then the same thing for a third price reduction. Now, third price reductions typically end up being 9% below original list price, with a final sales price of 3% below that. So if I price aggressively and right, I'm going to get about 1% below that list price. If I have to make 3 price reductions, I'm going to probably lose about 11%. It's up to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Overcoming some challenges. I think here's just some key things that you guys can do, right? Is one, make sure you're providing really good customer service. Increase frequency of communication. You can, nobody ever, no seller or buyer ever said, my agent, I couldn't stand him. He talked to me too much and gave me too much information and kept me updated too much. The number one complaint that buyers and sellers make is that my real estate agent didn't communicate with me enough. And we can leverage some of the tools that we have to do some updates. In opportunities inside of Command, you can set up basically automated updates on what's going on with the properties. So again, if you don't know how to do that, reach out to your MCTT again or your RTT and say, hey, listen, I was on this shift class and John said that you in Command, you can set up in opportunities, you can set up automated client updates. Tell me more about that, right? Just another thing that we can leverage. Increase the frequency of open houses. So maybe we need to do more open houses, and we maybe do a little bit different timing so that we can attract more people. Okay. And then this is probably the most important one on overcoming challenges, is the more data that we can show to prove to our sellers what's going on, the better are we going to be getting them to price right or making price reductions as necessary. Anybody have anything they want to add to any of these things or good tips that have been through shifts before? Updates and communication. I think that's key. So what are some unique, go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
I haven't been through a shift, but Is there anything extra that people can think of to offer their sellers to help sell or to get more listings? I mean, it's, I've been doing, besides the professional, photographs, I definitely do, house, roof inspections, pest inspections. And then I do offer like professional cleaning where they'll do a deep cleaning in the home to put it on the market. Anybody have any other ideas of what we can do to help get it sold and to attract sellers to us?
Personally, I think the thing right now is really, again, going back into who are going to be the motivated sellers, and then what kinds of marketing pieces and information are we getting to them on the things that are important to them? Because again, not everybody's going to have to sell. So who can we again think of that have to sell? Empty nesters that was brought up, that was a really good one. What message am I sending them, or what offer am I making to empty nesters? I think the other thing is just making sure that we're communicating with those people who do have to move. You need to get off the fence, because if you don't get off the fence, a couple things are going to happen here. If you have to buy a new house, if you can't pay cash, you're going to end up having to pay a higher interest rate on whatever you buy. So waiting is going to cost you on the back end a higher rate, which that's not a good thing. If you wait too long in order to move to, what's going to happen to the house that you sell? Buyer pool is going to decrease because interest rates are going up. Your inventory is going to go up. You're going to have more competition to sell your home, and you're going to probably get a lower price. I don't know about you, Mr. and Mrs. Home Seller, but if I have to sell, I would rather be able to get a really good rate and be able to get more money for my house rather than waiting, having to pay a high interest rate and getting less for my house. Right? So making sure we're having conversations about the economy and what that could do to them as a potential seller, I think that's really important too. Anybody else have anything to add?
I had a question.
Sure.
I have this was a couple months ago. This was like in May. So yeah, a couple months ago. My God, it's July. Anyway, I had a couple people who were interested in new construction. So with this new shift in the market, is that something that is just kind of like off the table at this point? Should I be steering them to properties that are not new construction? I'm not really sure how to give them direction with the market shifting the way it is.
Not necessarily, because that's the other thing, especially if I'm a home builder and I have a few homes still to sell and I've been through a shift before and I know what's coming. I want out of that as fast as I possibly can so that I'm off the hook because if I'm sitting on 10 houses and interest rates go up to 8%, I'm screwed. Right? Because now whatever I thought I was going to get for the houses, I'm not going to get. And so I think that right now, in terms of a motivated seller, a lot of these builders that have been through this before, they know what's going on and what's happening. And it might not be necessarily the big home builders like the KB Homes and some of those places, because they can absorb taking a hit. But if I'm a local or a smaller builder, I need to cut my losses and get out. So I wouldn't necessarily steer them away from that. And actually, that's one of the other things too. I would be going out and building relationships right now with builders, not the big ones, but the smaller home builders, because what's going to happen when the market shifts? Are they going to build houses? Most of those new home builders stop building houses when the market shifts, because if the values are declining, they don't want to build a house today that's worth 10% or 15% less by the time they finish building the house. So a lot of those guys stop that, right? What a lot of them do, or at least what I saw in the last market shift, is a lot of builders stopped building the new houses and then they went out and became investors and bought houses cash and were cash buyers on ones that they could then put their crew to work on rehabbing and then turn around and flipping those. So I would be reaching out to a lot of builders right now. Those are some potential good deals that you might be able to negotiate with buyers, and also build relationships with those builders as potential buyers of properties that they could flip later.
That's awesome. Thanks, John.
Sure. All right, so again, we're almost at the end here. So on this one, I'm going to skip the group activity. We talk about some price reductions for stubborn sellers. So here's some things that you guys can use. Overpriced listings that you will want to take. So when might I take an overpriced listing? Well, I'm not going to turn down a past customer, so I might take that as an overpriced customer. Excellent referrals. So somebody that's a good referral source, I'm going to do what I can for them. Somebody who's motivated, meaning that, hey, I'm going to start out overpriced, but I am motivated to sell. I'll probably do a price reduction if we need to. Or a property in a farm area that you dominate or want to dominate. I'm not letting anybody take a listing in my area as far as that goes. So if I have to take a little bit of an overpriced listing so that somebody else doesn't get it, then I'll take it because I want all the listings here. So here's some possible benefits that you can get even from the overpriced listings. Get your name recognition out there. So like say your farm that you're trying to dominate, and could potentially get you some buyer leads. Now, here are some of the potential downsides. A sitting yard sign can have a negative impact on your reputation because the house doesn't sell. And then we talked about this already. Frustrated sellers can speak negatively about you to others. So before you take these overpriced, these are reasons why you might want to take them on, how you can benefit. But just keep in mind that this could be an unintended consequence of taking that. So really, really think about taking, even with a past customer, I might sit there and say, hey, listen, Joe, I know you're a past customer, really like you, want to service this as best as I can. If we don't sell at X by X amount of time, can we just pre-write up a price reduction into the listing contract so that we don't need to worry about it as we get into that point? If they say, yeah, cool. If they say no, then I might actually, even though they're a past customer, refer them out to somebody else, because this could be really bad for me, right? Having to go and have a sign sit out and have people speaking bad about me could have a bad consequence for myself. So some other strategies, according to NAR stats, price reduction needs to be made after a home has 10 showings with no offers or 2 to 3 weeks of no showings. So here's a couple different strategies you might think of. Consider reducing the price by 5% if the showing has had 10 to 12 showings with no offers. If there have been no showings at all, consider reducing the price by 10%. So maybe I go in to talk to Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Awesome, we'll list at this price. If we don't have any showings within the first, or if we have 10 showings or 12 showings somewhere in there and there hasn't been any offers, can we knock 5% off? Yeah, sure. If we have no showings in a week, right, we probably need to be a little bit more aggressive and go to 10. So that's one strategy. Another one is reducing the price significantly enough to reach a new set of buyers searching online, because buyers typically search in ranges. So maybe I'm listed at 534, right? Maybe I know that the next price point that people typically search is $499. So maybe I need to be reduced to get into that next search parameter so that more people are seeing the house. And then we could potentially, even if it's lower than maybe what we want it to be, could potentially create that bidding effect as well too. And then strategy 3 that you guys could look at is drop the price in strategic increments. Buyers, again, tend to search in increments of 10 grand with a lower and upper limit. So dropping from 250 to 247 might not get me any new buyers to the property. Dropping from 250 to 240 or 239.9 might open up a whole different search parameter for me and get me a whole new influx of buyers that hadn't seen the property yet. So really good slide for you to show your sellers as well too. A couple things, minding your language. When we talk about price, we say things like improvement, correction, adjustment, modification, refinement, not lowering your price. And this is more in terms of, again, not necessarily just for our sellers, but for who we're advertising this to. Hey, great price correction. We want to make it think like there's not a stigma of there's something wrong with the house. So by using price improvement, price correction, price adjustment, price modification, price refinement, rather than, hey, we lowered the price of this. Those are all good words to use. So summary, consult on price, be purposeful in conversations with sellers. Make sure that we're using our conversations and our presentations are data-driven, where we have facts to back up what we say. Educate your sellers to price ahead of the market, because pricing behind or at it could end up losing them more money than if they had just priced it correctly out of the gate. Secure price reductions in advance. Listing appointment. I can't tell you, you're going to have a much easier time getting price reductions if you get them to agree to the price reductions at the listing appointment. Because 2 weeks after we have the listing appointment, I tell you that you have to reduce your price. It's like a punch in the gut. Oh man, I'm not going to get what I wanted to get. Me telling you up front, hey, Joe, if we don't get any offers on this within the first 10 days, we need to do a 10% price reduction. Let's get this addendum set up so that we don't need to worry about having about that later. Cool. Yeah, I'll do that. So now 10 days shows up. We don't have any offers. I called Joe and I said, hey, Joe, I'm going to, trigger that addendum that we created on the 10% price reduction. We haven't gotten any showings on the house in the first 10 days here. Yep. I remember that, John. That's kind of a bummer, but totally get it, right? Be the local market expert and use it to your advantage. Know your numbers, analyze the MLS market snaps, understand what's selling and why those things are selling so that you can have smarter conversations with your people. And then create some graphs to provide visual representation. There's a lot of really cool graphs that were shown in here that you guys can give to your sellers. That one about being in market or out of market, I think is really, really awesome. Make sure that you use our tools. And even if you're not using our tools, put together a good listing presentation if you haven't already. Make sure that you're using Command Smart Plans and drip campaigns and those automated client updates. And then make sure that you're getting clients to utilize your tools as well, too. Okay. Any questions on any of the stuff that we had there? A couple of really quick things is for buyers, motivation criteria. They have to be able, meaning that they have cash and credit worthiness. They have to be ready. So they have to have the personal reasons on wanting to be motivated to do or to buy a house, and they have to be willing. So they have to be able to say, have all three of these things. If those people aren't right, you need to refer them out, because ultimately, if the time think about the time you waste on a buyer, I shouldn't say waste. Think about the time you spend on a buyer that does want to buy. Now think about the buyer that's unmotivated and how much time they can suck away from you. In a shifted market, we don't have the luxury of working with unmotivated or unwilling people that want to buy a house, because we're going to have to go through more leads to sell the same amount of properties. And so if we're working with one buyer that's unmotivated, think about the buyers that we miss out on because we're too busy spending time with somebody who's never going to purchase a house. So if they don't meet those three criteria of being able, ready, and willing, that's a referral out to somebody else. Because, hey, if Janet can sell them, great. I still get a referral fee, but I don't think this person's going to be ready, willing, and able to buy. So I'm going to go find 4 more buyers in the time that I would have spent on this other buyer. And if Janet happens to close them, great, I still get paid. And you do this by becoming, again, the local economist of choice, knowing the market so that you can convince your buyers about, what the market actually looks like, helping them tap into their why. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is to get them to find out why they want to do that, so you can get them to avoid the buyer reluctance. So we need to talk to them about the hazards of timing the market. Even if you think prices are going to go down, rates are going to probably go up. And if rates go up, the price reduction that you got is going to get eaten up in rate, right? Trading up, the opportunity that they have in a down market to maybe get into a bigger house than what they thought they would get because prices are now a little bit cheaper. Less is more, making sure that you're narrowing what they see down and really focusing on the things that are going to be really great fits for them. And then finding the best buy, get while it's good, because ultimately the market's going to shift again, or rates are going to go up higher, and then you're going to be priced out. So these are some really cool things that you can do to overcome some buyer reluctance as well. Any questions on those? What are some potential issues, or really fast? I know we got a little bit of time left and I want to make sure we get through this. What are some things that you've maybe encountered as objections that we haven't talked about from buyers? Anything?
Hi, this is Daria.
Hey, Daria.
I heard an objection that they could be like undecided about where they want to live. They want to buy a home, but they are thinking between my area where I live and 3 other areas in 3 other states. So like
Yeah.
they're undecided, or maybe not motivated, like you're saying.
Well, yeah, in that particular case, it might just be an unmotivated. Other areas I'm okay with, right? Other states, then that's somebody that probably is not super motivated, and I might not potentially work with that particular person. So in that kind of sense, I would just work on, what do you like about those 3 different areas, and which one are you leaning towards? And if they tell me that they're leaning towards something that's not an area I service, then I'm not going to prioritize them as a client. And then just bulletproofing the transaction. We talked a little bit about this yesterday already, right? Is making sure that we explain expectations clearly. We set expectations. We make sure that we're keeping up with the timeframes, making sure that the right house finds the right buyer at the right time. If it's not in the best interest of your client, don't push it, because things could potentially fall out. So we want to make sure we find the right house or the right buyer at the right time. We set expectations. We make sure that we're keeping track of dates, and that we write clean offers. A good quote by somebody that's actually in our region, Brandon's brilliant. It says, present expectations, double down, triple down on communication, and on making sure you aren't making any mistakes.
Hi, I had a question. So say you're hosting an open house and people walk in and you can tell and you feel like maybe this isn't the right house for them, but your duty is to the seller. Like, how do you manage that? It feels like a tension to me of trying to get this house sold when I know it's not right for somebody, even if they're,
No, I think
if I think I can convince them.
Well, I mean, I think the big thing is that's just goes along with like dual agency, which is one of the reasons why I don't do it. Is my job for the sellers to get them the best deal for the house and the highest price with the least amount of effort. My job, or my fiduciary duty to the buyer, is to get them the house for the cheapest and the house that's best suited for them. So if I'm holding an open house and this is not the right house for a buyer, hey, I'm still doing my fiduciary duty for my seller. I'm trying to get them the highest price with a motivated buyer. But at the end of the day, I don't even want to get into that business. It's not my job to sell you on buying a house. You're going to find the house that's perfect for you, or I'm going to help you find the house that's perfect for you. My job is just to help you navigate you on how to get it. So if it is so, and again, that's what kind of always been my philosophy, is it's not my job to convince a buyer to buy a house. Okay.
John, I have a question. Well, a question and a statement. I had a motivated buyer back in March. When we talked, she was just in the process of making sure that she had savings in her account. I gave her all of the information about what to do as a first-time home buyer. I have spoken with her several times, and she still stayed motivated. When we had our second quarter market update, I thought I was doing her a benefit. I thought I was bringing to her relevant information that would help her solidify her decision. What my thought process was is for her to get her pre-approval locked and get her rate locked in for 90 days. However, when I told her about the market and that the rates, the interest rates were beginning to increase, she made it seem as if I were pushing her into making a decision faster than what she was ready. And I explained to her, no, I'm just giving you the information as it occurred. And I actually thought you'd be interested to know firsthand right up front before it hits the news and things like that. These are the trends that are happening. And so she just felt like it was a, what do you call it? Hard push or hard something. I don't remember the terminology. And
Hard ask.
from that point, she kind of pulled back. So I'm not really sure how to talk to my customers now that, well, that one specifically, but now that I'm having these conversations with people in my pipeline and I'm explaining to them the market is changing and that there is a shift where the rates are going up, but the prices for the homes, they haven't dropped enough for them to really see the change yet. They just are focusing on the interest rate. So my question is, one, which script is out there that I can practice on to have a better conversation where it doesn't seem like I'm doing some sort of hard sell? And second, what are some tips or some techniques that other people are using to gently give them truthful information without sounding like you're trying to pull something, a fast one? Those are
The
my
big
two
thing
questions.
is get permission from them to give them information. Right? I don't think you really need a big script. You just say, hey, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is it okay with you if I give you information that's going to help you make the best decision possible for what you want to accomplish with real estate? I think most of them are going to say yeah. And then when it comes time to deliver that information, hey, remember when I told you that I was going to give you news, whether it was good or bad, to help you create or help you make a good decision for what you want to accomplish with real estate? Yeah, I remember. Well, I got a little bit of bad news, unfortunately. Rates have went up by X amount. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that because the Fed said that rates are going to continue to probably rise. We're talking about another 3 increases over the next by the end of the year, right? And so I wanted to give you that information because that might help influence or change the way that you think about potentially either making a decision to do something now or holding off. I'm not here to tell you that you need to make a decision now. Ultimately, that's up to you, but I'm here to give you the information so that you can make the right decision for yourself, right? So just ask them for permission.
I basically did that. She
Yep.
just didn't receive the information well in this specific scenario.
And in that case, we're not gonna please everybody. So I wouldn't take it to heart. I would just, say that I'm not trying to get you to make a decision one way or the other. I just am giving you the information so that you can make the right decision and move on. Craig, you had a question? Craig, you had your hand up?
John, this is
Yeah.
Allison. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm driving, sorry. So is there such a thing as giving a client too much information? Good
Yeah, absolutely.
or not good?
You ask them the information that they, that's why it's important to do a buyer consult early on so that you find out the kind of information that they want. But it's kind of like, I had a buddy that used to tell me about a car salesman that he knew that didn't do very well. And part of the reason he said that he didn't do very well is that the guy would give information to the consumers on questions that the consumers weren't even asking. So he was talking too much and he was basically not selling the things because he was overselling the stuff. So ultimately, as a buyer or as a seller, what are the things that are going to help you make a decision? What's important to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? What's your motivation? What's your why? And then now I'm going to take the information that they give me and I'm going to supply that information with them. So each buyer and seller is different. Some buyers or sellers want a ton of information. Some of them don't want a lot. So that's why we have to gauge and ask questions on how, basically, what do you expect? Again, what do you expect out of me as an agent so that I can best assist you in making the decision that you want to make? And for some of them, it's just leave them alone and let them make a decision. So, okay, great. I'm going to provide you with kind of the minimal stuff. And then some of them are like, throw every piece of data you can at me. So I guess in terms of offering some advice, the best advice I can give on that is just do a really in-depth buyer or seller interview at the beginning of the process. Find out what kind of updates and information that they're going to want and expect from you, and then give them what they want. Okay. All right. We talked a little bit about this stuff already. So we talked a little bit about KW technology, so we can kind of skip through that. We're right about the end. So I'm going to skip over this. We'll get some ahas. I just want to make sure that we go through the last little part here. There's only a couple slides. So creating an action plan, I want you guys to take a look at this. We're going to probably go just a couple minutes over. So stick around if you can. If you gotta leave, I understand, because we're going to be a couple minutes over, but I promise we won't go more than 5 minutes. So creating an action plan, taking the time and effort to stay positive and frame of mind during difficult periods of time. That's the challenge. So a way we can overcome that is do some daily check-ins, right? So make sure that with your team, you're checking in with them. And if you don't have a team and you're a solo agent, partners in the office, people, mortgage reps, people that we work with, TCs, just check in with, our clients so that you can make those human connections. Make sure that if maybe not necessarily our clients, but if we're having an emotional day, making sure that we're checking in with our productivity coach or our team leader or somebody on our team that can help support and bring me up is going to be really, really good, right? And then the other thing that we can do is get really tactical. So when we want to really dive into stuff to kind of get us out of a funk and make sure our mindset's right, focus on improvement of the different systems that I have. Again, Brandon, good quote in here. I want to buffer from when I get up to when I get into the activity of about 2 hours. This allows me into what is particularly intense time more successfully because I present the foundation of my mindset from the morning, and then I begin my day at 10 o'clock, right? So creating some routines that are going to help you kind of get into the zone, super important, okay? Really fast too. Make sure that you're writing goals down and then you break it down into a plan. So if you haven't taken the class on doing a 1-3-5, make sure that you take the class on doing a 1-3-5, because that's going to help you get really clear and focused on your goals and the things that you want to accomplish. And if you don't know how to do that, and if there's no classes, work with your team leader on helping you set up a 1-3-5. Basically what the 1-3-5 is it's like you present to yourself the one thing that you really want to accomplish, 3 strategies to be able to accomplish that one thing, and then 5 activities for each one of those 3 things to help you accomplish those, right? This is the economic model. Again, this is through the business planning clinic. Make sure that if you have not done this activity, that you go through this with a coach or with your team leader that can walk you through making sure that you know what your economics are. Because again, this is just about knowing our numbers. We always need to know how many appointments we need, how many of those we convert to listings, how many of those we convert actually to sales. And then we do that for both the sell side and the buy side. And that's going to allow us to know what our net income is. And the things that are kind of at the top here is when we close a commission, let's just say we close a commission of 10 grand. We should take income of about 40% of our GCI. So if we closed a $10,000 deal, our income should be about 4,000. We're probably going to spend about 30% on cost of sales, at least until we cap. And then we want to put about 30% back into our business so our business can continue to grow. Okay. And if you want to really learn a lot more about this, as we get closer to the end of the year, this is covered pretty intensely in the business planning clinics that are usually offered at every market center. So this is just going to show you, if I want to become $1 million real estate agent, right, I need to have about 2.5 million in GCI, because I'm going to spend about 750,000 on my business and another 750,000 on my cost of sales. In order to achieve this, my average commission is 7,150. So I'm going to need to sell 350 total units. So this is why, again, make sure at the end of the year, you go to the business planning clinic. And if you want to get on to this right now, meet with your PC coach or your team leader, and they can walk you through how to do this process so that you know how much you have to sell in order to make the income that you want to make. And just some examples. If we wanted to do 50% sellers, then we would need about 175 total listings. At a 70% conversion rate, we would need about 250 total seller listings, because we're not going to sell all of them. And then the conversion rate for seller listings means we would need to go on about 333 appointments. So if we go on 333 appointments, we're going to get 250 listings, and we're going to actually sell 175 of them, which is 50% of this 350. Using the same math, we want 50% of our business to come from buyers. We need to sell about 175. At a 70% conversion rate, we need 250 total buyers. And in order to get 250 total buyers, we need to go on 357 buyer appointments. So knowing your numbers is going to give us power. And in order to do that, we know that, hey, we need to go on about 26 a month or 7 a week to get those the amount of appointments in that we need to do in order to close the business we want to close for this year. And we talked about setting goals in command already, so that's not anything new. And there's a big difference between business and busyness. Make sure that you're focused on your business needs. You have clear models and systems. You time block your day. You prioritize the things you have to do and the things to the to-dos, right? And then busyness is, hey, I'm not really focused on time. I'm not really clear on stuff. I'm scattered. I have the appearance of basically having to being busy, but I'm not really actually getting anything done. This 411 is basically breaking my goals down into annual goals, personal business, and annual goals for both personal and business. And then saying, okay, hey, listen, what do I want to accomplish annually? In order to accomplish what I want to accomplish annually, what do I need to accomplish monthly? And then breaking them down into a 4-week month. What can I accomplish each week to achieve my monthly goals that'll help me achieve my annual? So there are classes on the 411 as well. And then in this section, we just want to bring up, time blocking, utilizing the 411 is super helpful. And that really brings us to the end of this. I told you we would go about 5 minutes over. So what are some ahas? And then we'll get you guys out of here. And then I'll stick around for a little bit if you guys have any questions. And then there is also an eval for the course that's in the notes. Any ahas for the last couple of days? I guess it was just a complete waste of our time because nobody learned anything. Okay. Cool.
I have hi, it's Emmy.
Hey, Emmy.
I have a couple of ahas actually. I want first thank you for taking the time to help us go through this shift book. Some of the things that I realize now going through as a first-time agent, I don't know what a shift looks like because I just got into it, but it sounds like from what you and some other experienced agents have said, there's a constant shift. It'll correct itself, and then it'll be in this, it'll be in the seller's market, then it'll correct itself. And so there's ebbs and flows. It's not consistent, which is for me, new information. I jumped into this thinking the way it was when everything was just crazy, selling, like you said, your dog could sell. I thought that was just the way it's gonna be. So my big aha is, aha, it's going to change and it's going to continue to change. The other aha is that there are so many opportunities to use the scripts in ways that I didn't think. I love the one about using a script. I think you said Jason Abrams. He has these conversations and you think that they're just tailored to the person, but it's really scripts. I didn't think of scripts in that way. I thought they were cold. I thought they were kind of analytical. I tried working with them and I'm gonna be honest, I'm a winger. I am. I'm just being transparent. I'm going back to my scripts and rethink how I use them. And I like that that Lego building block analogy that you gave us. So those are my two aha. Sorry, that's it.
Oh, awesome. And then I see here kind of the same thing. Claudia said the whole Mel Gibson thing about scripts was a big aha for her. So was for me too when I heard it the first time. All right. Any other ones? And then we'll get you guys out of here. Just a little bit over. Okay. Well, thanks for coming to the class. Again, there is some a note in there on doing an evaluation if you want to do an eval. And then I believe Jules had put my email into the chat box. If you have any questions later that you think of, or you want any information, you can always email me. It's johnmorris@kw.com. Pretty easy stuff. And thank you for the comments on the class.
I
have fun teaching it. So
sorry.
it's okay.
Thank you for all this information because I'm about like a month in the KW, so I'm trying to kind of be patient and see how I can learn the stuff. And my aha for today is like when people say they a millionaire agent, I was thinking like it's something that's like, that's kind of easy, but I see that's how much work that they have to put into really become a millionaire agent.
Yeah.
And it's like every day I'm waking up, like when people are talking about real estate, like you think it's like something you can just come in, like you waking up in the income every day, but it's not how it is.
Yeah, no, it's not like they show on TV. It's not about handing keys to everybody, driving sports cars and making lots of money. There's a lot of work that's involved in it too. So thank you for being here. And I thank all of you guys for pouring into yourselves and learning how to navigate through the shift. And it's not anything I would necessarily worry about. I know it can be scary if you haven't been through one of these before, but there is business in every market. We just might have to we might need to adapt on how we go out and get it and who we get it from. But there's going to be business to be had. So thank you guys.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye.